if somebody asks you what do you do for a living, or how do you make your living, your livelihood, what do you tell them?
I tell them I make a living by having fun, which is not true. People think it's fun to be in the outdoor world, but it's a lot of work. So actually I have two jobs. I have Denmon Engineering, I own an engineering company, and which I'm selling to some of my employees now, but I still own the majority of it. And I have Mojo. And so I split my time between two full-time jobs, so half my time I spend doing Denmon Engineering, half my time I spend doing Mojo, half my time I spend farming, and the other half my time I spend hunting.
So you're out of time by the end of it.
Pretty much.
When you grew born and raised in the state of Louisiana, and did you go to college in Louisiana?
I went to Louisiana Tech. I was born in the very northeast corner of Louisiana, about 15 miles from the Mississippi River. So I was in the Mississippi River bottoms, hardwood bottoms, which is super duper hunting habitat. So I grew up in a real rural area where you could walk out the back door and go hunt and just keep walking, So I've been hunting since as long as I can remember.
And as far as your days at Law Tech, there's some pretty strong Louisiana celebrity that's come out of there besides yourself. Did you go to school with Bradshaw, or is that where Bradshaw went to college? Was that Law Tech, him and Phil?
Bradshaw went to Louisiana Tech. He did. So did Phil Robertson, the Duck Dynasty star,
Yeah.
So we all went there, but they were noted and I wasn't, I'll tell you that.
Well, I'd say at that time Bradshaw was noted a little bit. One of the most famous sayings in duck hunting was probably when Phil said that with Duckman 1 video with Coco. He said something like Bradshaw went for the bucks and I went for the ducks, but they both played football there, and you still have ties with Duck Commanders. I mean, you guys live in the same town, right?
Yeah, they're from West Monroe, and I'm from Monroe. It's just river separates us, but I don't know those guys real well. We actually do some product work with them. The Rippler that we brought out about a year or two ago, well, we brought the first one out 2 years ago, and the Butt Up this year, that's a Duck Commander endorsed product. So we have an arrangement with them where we will make a number of Duck Commander endorsed products as we go forward.
And is it still where they can't walk outside anymore, or is that craze kind of gone away? Because at one time they had a museum or like a destination where people were flying in from all over the world, weren't they, when Duck Dynasty was hot?
That is correct. And they had a restaurant, Duck Dynasty restaurant, and they had this and that and the other all around there. But it's not as hot as it was, but they still get a lot of guests come by their warehouse there in West Monroe, and they have some type of tour type circuit. If you get there at the right time, they'll let you tour the facility. My best Phil Robinson, Terry Bradshaw, and I didn't know Terry Bradshaw now, but I know Phil Robinson pretty good. I saw him on national TV one time. At that time, Terry Bradshaw had gone bald, and he didn't have any front teeth. And Phil Robinson asked him, said, "What happened to you?" And he said, "Well, says 300-pound lineman chase me for a living, says makes your hair fall out. They catch you and knock your teeth out."
That's no joke. And I mean, as far as like the personality that somebody that I think I would want to hang out with, Bradshaw just seems like the coolest cat. That new show that he's on, I can't think of it right now on TV, but it's him and Captain Kirk and all these guys. They go around and they're in their, they're in their 60s and 70s. And I think one of them's even in their young 80s. And they just have a blast, and he's kind of like the ringleader of it. And I can imagine being in the huddle with him, or it just seems like he would be the coolest cat to hang out with.
Well, Robinson, Phil, and Terry, I don't know near as much about Terry as I do about Phil, but, you a great host, TV host, anything like that, if what you're trying to do on TV or on entertainment is who you really are, if you're not having to pretend in any kind of way. And I know that's true for Phil Robinson, and I'm pretty sure it's true for Terry Bradshaw.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard stories of Phil, like, where he would be booked for speaking engagements or, whether it was at a church or a sporting goods store back when Duck Commander duck calls were selling all over. And these particular stories I heard were in the state of California, where he would show up with no shoes on. There was like sometimes where he'd open the car door and he'd get out with no shoes on. And I don't know if it's true or not, but I know what you're saying, Terry, because he lives that life that he portrayed on TV. And I meant the catching the fish and cutting the heads off and killing squirrels and eating them and gator hunting and killing ducks every day and living off the land. I mean, no, I think that he's one guy that money might change you a little bit, but I don't think it could change Phil too much. He might hunt a little bit better places now or have some more ground to hunt, but I bet you still dresses the same and sits in the same chair.
Phil's just Phil, no matter where you go and how much money he's got. A guy told me one time on that barefoot deal that Phil took him hunting one morning, this big old break before daylight, and Phil said, well, you wade down this way and I'll wade the other way, and we'll meet back here at some time. And so later that morning, the guy was telling me the story, looks up and he sees Phil wading toward him, coming down the bayou, and this guy's leaning up against a big floating log, which is pretty prevalent down in our part of the world. And he said, Phil got up on that log. He said it was cold. He said Phil got up on that log and he out wading out of the thing, and he was barefoot. And I didn't know whether to believe that story or not, so I asked Phil about that one time, and he said, yeah. He said, God told me not to wear shoes, not to wear boots, waders or, hip boots or anything. And he was a commercial fisherman, Phil was actually a school teacher when he got out of college, and then he eventually moved over to West Monroe, and he was a commercial fisherman, trying to make a living doing that while he's getting his duck call business going, And he said, yeah, God told me not to wear them. And he said, I think he said he hunted for 4 years barefooted.
For 4 years.
Snakes, you've been down in our country.
Well, I ain't even dealing with a cottonmouth. I've seen cottonmouths on your videos that are, I was teal hunting with you until last September, and all I could think about was cottonmouths climbing in the blind with us. And I know that y'all have opened your blind door and had gators in there and cottonmouths. And you bring that up and you laugh about it, and a lot of people from your neck of the woods do. But I remember I was in Arkansas. I went for a jog with Tom, and we were down at a duck club during the summer months. It was during Max Prairie Wings Fall Fest, and we ran past two of them. And we're just like, I don't know how aggressive they are, but I've heard stories like I think one of them bit Phil's sister at one time and she had to get her leg amputated or something happened to that instance. But are they as dangerous as people say they are? And living down there, is it a worry? Are people worried about them?
Well, it's a little bit unusual, Chad. There's lots of cottonmouths and other kinds of snakes there, too. We have lots of snakes of all kinds, but, cottonmouth is the one that garners all the attention because it can be aggressive. Generally speaking, if they don't feel threatened in any kind of way, they'll just swim away, But if you make them mad or, anything like that, they will attack you. We used to sit out in a boat and throw fishing baits at one swimming in the water. And if you make him mad enough, he'll come get in that boat with you, And so I actually got struck by a cottonmouth one time myself and hung up in my tennis shoe. Fortunately, he didn't get through. I had a big, thick athletic sock on under my tennis shoe, and he didn't get through to both of them, but I almost stepped on him. He was on the other side of the log. So if they feel threatened, they're probably the most aggressive snake in the United States.
The most aggressive?
Aggressive, yes.
So they will attack?
They will, yes.
And
however, you check statistics, millions of people living down there, millions of snakes down there. No one's getting bit that often, and rarely does anyone ever die anymore from a cottonmouth bite.
Now, I remember when I was down there, leading up to the teal hunt last September 2017, you were sending some texts with some duck reports and, kind of the food plots or the moist soil units that the birds were using. And then it came up that there wasn't as many snakes on the farm this year as there been in the past. And there was a reason why. It was something to do, a local down there had told somebody, I don't know if it was you or Marty telling me, but when numbers of another animal are up, snakes are down, or what do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And there's two theories about why we haven't had as many cottonmouths in the last couple of years as we had previous to that. One of them, with this crazy weather we have, and when it rains in the months it's supposed to be dry, and it's dry in the months it's supposed to be rain, and the Mississippi River gets up and it will flood all that backwater part of that country. And it's flooded us late in the year the last 2 years. And the guy that oversees our farm, he lives right there next to us. He's been living in that country his whole life. And he says he thinks that flooding has something to do with it. Now, we've always had a lot of hogs because that was free-range country, if you knew what that was. Most of the property belonged to big timber companies, 100,000, 200,000 acres, 300,000 acres, something like that. And years ago, maybe up to the 50s or something like that, they let people free-range animals on their land, and they free-range mostly hogs and cows. And when they stopped that in the 60s, people could get the cows off, but they couldn't get the hogs out. So we had a jump start on the rest of the world on wild hogs. So there's a lot of hogs there. Hogs love to eat snakes, so I'm sure that they've taken care a big part of the snake problem for us.
So being a native of Louisiana and with this hog craze going on, meaning that they've become overrun in several areas, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Florida, there's helicopter shooting. There's all kinds of hog hunting that goes on in our country now, California even. But would you rather have snakes on your farm or hogs?
Snakes.
You'd rather have the cottonmouths?
Sure. Cottonmouth's not destroying the environment. Snakes are literally, hogs are literally in destroying the environment. They just destructive to the land.
Because they root up everything?
They root up everything, and on our farm, you've been there, you've hunted with us, we have about 1,500 acres in that block, and about 550 acres of it's a shallow water reservoir that we manage just for ducks. And we hold the water on it until about late June. We'll take it off in about a month from now. Well, when we take that water off, then all the rest of the land around us is dried, and hogs rather root in the mud, soft ground, so they will just literally take our farm over, our duck field part of our farm over, as soon as we get that water off, and they can get in there, and they're very destructive.
Have you ever heard that same analogy with snow geese? Am I thinking about that right, Mr. Terry? About are snow geese different than a Canada goose? As like a Canada goose would be more like a cow where he's going to be a grazer, and a snow goose is a rooter, a derooter, to where he'll like just tear up the vegetation so bad that he can destroy a field. Or am I off on that? Have you ever heard anything on that?
Yes, I have, and the story that you tell is the story that's told. I don't know if it's true or not, but the big concern, especially like 10 or 15 years ago, was that the snow goose population had become so large that they were destroying their breeding grounds way up north, Arctic Circle and stuff like that. And the vegetation that they ate up there, they was pulling it out of the ground, pulling the roots out of the ground. So I don't know that a Canada goose wouldn't do that, but they certainly wasn't doing it to the extent that these snow geese are. So that's when they opened up the snow geese, brought on the conservation order where you let you kill a lot of them, because the fact of the matter is there's just too many snow geese, and I've heard that, I've heard from biologists, I've heard them say that, like if the snow goose destroyed their habitat up there, they own about a 25-year cycle, meaning it would take 25 years for them to rebound from the loss that would occur if they decimated their breeding grounds.
So the question that comes to mind is there ever going to be a controllable factor that we can do as a human being, or a hunting population, or the conservation agencies, or Ducks Unlimited, or anybody that they've started the spring depredation season, what they call the quote unquote conservation seasons, where I think every state that offers that season, which is most states now, is a no limit, where I think Iowa was the last one to go from a 20 bird limit to no limit, no plug in your gun. You can use extended magazines. Are we even putting a dent in the snow goose? And I'm off track here a little bit, but I just wanted to kind of get your thought on that, because you're known to me, as far as I'm concerned, you're a duck guy and a predator guy, maybe a little bit of a turkey guy, a mule deer guy on the side, but I think that your main passions are ducks and coyotes. That's what I've got through our friendship. I just kind of wanted to get your feeling of the snow goose, and are we even really making a mark on them?
Well, I can't really tell you. I don't know the answer to that. It's a very interesting question. We ought to find the answer to that. But, one reason it makes it very hard to determine is the fact that the change in weather has changed the snow goose's migration pattern so much. And it used to be, thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of snow geese come to Louisiana. And, of course, the snow goose capital of the world was down South Texas, Eagle Lake, and that part of the world. Snow geese don't even hardly come down there anymore. So they're moving so much that it's probably kind of hard to tell unless, you were one of these biologists or somebody that's working on snow geese from one end of their migration pattern to the other. But it does bring up an interesting point. And that point would be that sport hunting does not hurt species of game. If you take normal regulatory measures that we take, then, we're not hurting any of the species, the ducks, the geese, the deer, anything else. And that's why they had to loosen up this conservation order for us to have any impact upon them at all, when we need to take the species out. So that's a heck of a point for sport hunting in general. It doesn't answer your question about the snow geese, but it's a good indicator that sport hunting does not hurt population. of the hunted species.
It brings up other questions that I have, and you're the guy that I would turn to ask, because in your career, you haven't just been an engineer, educated at the college level engineer, made an awesome living in the engineering world as an entrepreneur, running a strong business in Louisiana, and then, starting arguably one of the most innovative and game-changing, hunting cultures and brands and at least duck hunting history, not to say predator, turkey, dove, everything else that Mojo has been a part of. But you've also sat on the board of directors. You've sat on the fish and game committees for the state of Louisiana. You've been in meetings. You've been part of setting guidelines and setting seasons and setting limits. When those limits are set, and when you talk about, let's say, the Mississippi Flyway, and your daily bag limit can have 2 hen mallards in it, or 1 hen mallard, or I know it's 2 out west, and in Arkansas you can kill 4 mallards. I believe 2 of them, which can be a hen, but maybe just 1 of them. You can correct me if I'm wrong. If a hunter went out every day and didn't really concentrate on just greenheads, but he stayed legal with his hen limit and the possession limit and the daily limit, will that biologically affect the makeup or the breeding or the duck population up and down the flyway for the future years?
I don't really think so, Chad. And of course, that's a complicated question. It doesn't have a simple answer. But sport hunting just doesn't affect the population dynamics of ducks. I've got a letter from the Assistant Secretary of U.S. Fish and Wildlife that says that back in the controversial days of Mojos, when states was considering whether they should use them or should not. Somebody asked for opinion. This guy wrote it, says we don't have any problem with using these spinning wing decoys because hunting does not affect the population dynamics of it. There's a couple more factors that fit into that. At that time, the average take by the average hunter in the United States was 2.2 ducks a hunt day. Where the limit would be probably 6. So you're not going to save. You're not going to save any of the species except by saving the days, because they're not killing the limit anyway.
So then why is a brand like you have come under fire when in states like Arkansas right now, in the WMAs and the wildlife management areas or the public areas, to say like the biometa? Why can't a duck hunter use a Mojo in the public areas of Arkansas? And I know that it's in other states too, where you can't use them in certain parts of states or states out west until a certain date. Duck clubs, private duck clubs have set the tone sometimes where say, if you can't use them at all, you can't use them until this date. Why is it is it really affect the duck that much, or are people just uneducated on because we're shooting guns that are way high powered. We're shooting ammo that's scientifically proven to be way deadlier than any ammo in the past. Everything that we do evolves. So we evolve. You make a machine that can have an effect and make a guy successful and have more confidence in and out of the field. Why does it come under fire?
Well, that's another very complicated question that does not have a simple answer, but this is what I believe after about 18 years of monitoring that situation very closely. Of course, when spinning wing decoys first came out, which is about 98 or 99, they got to the Mississippi Flyway and the lower Mississippi Flyway in 99, they would have a more dramatic effect upon ducks at that time before ducks kind of got used to them. And I have a theory about all that too. But, at that time, people started saying, well, maybe they're not sporting. But as you say, look at all the things that have changed over the years. Clothes, you can stay out there much longer. Waders like you guys made, much more comfortable, keep you dry, you stay out there longer. Transportation. When I first started hunting when I was a kid, you could get to where you could walk or wade. That's as far as we could get. We didn't have a machine to get us off the road, So now you can get in a motorized vehicle and go just about anywhere you want to go in the world, back in the worst swamp and everything. So there's all kinds of devices that have helped people become more successful. Now, I'm not saying that this is a reason that that's happening, but I do know that one of the influences on it is basically a have and have not question. The guys that have real good hunting, if you got the money to acquire a real good duck hunting place, you will be successful, whether you have Mojos or whether you don't. You just got the ducks there. You don't have ducks imprint on a very, very specific area. I'm not talking about a half a mile, a quarter mile. I'm talking about on a very specific area. And if some guys, you got to go out and hunt on public land, it gets much tougher for you. Well, spinning wing decoys helped the guys that didn't have the best hunting in the world much more than it did the guys that did, because it allows someone to be successful where maybe before they would not be successful. Now, in the near 20 years they've been out, their effect upon ducks is obviously not what it was in the beginning, and we wouldn't want it to be. If these animals don't catch on to what brings danger to them, they will become extinct. And we certainly don't want that to happen. It's a very useful tool in hunting, and I can't really tell you why people are against it. I know you mentioned a while ago I was on the Wildlife and Fisheries Commission, and for the state of Louisiana for 6 years. I've served as chairman 2 years, vice chairman is 2 years, and we had a group of bow hunters that would come to us. They were real active, coming to the meetings. They lived in the area where the meetings were held, and they didn't want to advance the art of bow hunting any. And my philosophy at that time was, my philosophy today is still the same. The hunting population in the United States is down to 5%. We sell about 15 million hunting licenses a year. Last count, there was something like 325 million people in the United States. You figure that out, that's a little less than 5%. So, we're getting to be a extreme minority. So my philosophy when I was on the commission was, hey guys, let's let them hunt by any method that we can determine is ethical and moral. We can make it legal if it's not a federally controlled species like a duck, the goose. They're federally controlled, so we can't change that a whole lot. But for deer and squirrels, all kind of species like that, if it's moral and ethical, let's make it legal. I wanted to bring crossbows and things like that, and we did get it done over time. It's there now. But those guys that came, and this is my point, they wanted to limit archery hunting to the equipment that they were using. And I was adamantly opposed to that, and I finally prevailed upon that, and I call that the close the gate when I get in theory, because that they would use the word traditional. But what they were using wasn't traditional. They were using compound bows and mechanical broadheads and silencers and all that stuff. Anything traditional about that. It just, you got to do it my way or the highway, And so a good bit of that's caught up in the spinning wing decoy thing, If it made it better, if it made it easier, some way they picked out that one product because it probably had a more a visual effect than any of these others did, but there was all kind of things that come along that made it easier and more successful. So it's just kind of, if it's not my way, it's not the right way. There's I've never had a biologist tell me there's any biological reason to use them or not use them.
And I never have either. And that's, you brought up the point and the fact that is very important to myself or anybody in this industry or anybody that has a lot of passion for the outdoors, bringing up the next generation, getting new people introduced to the sport, the lifestyle of the American hunter, kids, boys, girls, your nephews, your nieces, your spouses, women. The numbers speak for themselves. There's a lot more deer hunters in the country than there are turkey hunters. There's more turkey hunters in the country than there are waterfowl hunters. I think sometimes you hear 1.7 million duck stamps. You hear 2.1 million duck hunters. It's somewhere, to be fair, let's just say it's 2 million. Well, if you start taking away the opportunity to have success, and not everybody's going to be the best duck hunter with the honed skills that can go out and scout and understand ripples on the water and motion on the water and the chocolate milk effect and sunshine against cloudy days and the wind at your back and the cold temperatures and what it does to the barometric pressure and what the pressure does to a duck's ears and makes them feed or not feed or be active or be nocturnal. All of that stuff goes into having experience. Well, the experience comes with confidence, I think. If you have confidence and you experience success, you're more apt to go again. So my point in saying that is that you go up to somewhere like North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, to where they have, the duck season opens a lot earlier than it does in places like you're from in Louisiana or Arkansas or Mississippi. A lot of their stuff is done in dry fields. The dry corn, revolution or evolution in America, the ethanol prices, the price of ethanol and fuel driving that price of corn up. A lot of farmers went to corn. It's affected a lot of the flyways, in my opinion, of the migration and ducks leaving certain areas and going to the places where they traditionally would end up. But without a mojo in a dry field, a lot of people say, I've heard people that have awesome hunts in dry fields, whether it's peas in Alberta and Saskatchewan or corn in North Dakota. Well, the fields are so big and so vast that you got to have that spinning wing to get their attention and bring them over. And I get that. I understand that because, that's your theory that the mojo is made to get a duck's attention and bring him into where you can let the rest of your arsenal go to work. But I disagree in a way because I've seen it to where they land on top of those mojos, and I've had it to where if you don't have a mojo in those fields or your battery dies, you don't kill ducks. So if those guys have the ability to see that power and that monumental moment of those mallards backpedaling at 50 feet over the decoy spread because of the mojo, they might only get 1 or 2 hunts a year, Mr. Terry. That season could be done in a heartbeat up there. That's what they're living for. So why take that away from them? And then I understand that, is it educating ducks, or is it really just a tool that if you're still a good duck hunter and they're in the woods in Arkansas, you're going to kill them. You can't beat them out of the woods once they get in there. From what I've seen and from what people have told me, if they're there, you could hunt that hole every day and you're still going to kill them. So it's weird to me that you want to take away something that has evolved the sport, gets more people excited to go, and helps people have confidence.
Well, yeah, their opinion certainly, Chad, as you say, does not help promote duck hunting, and that's something we really need to do. You know, the 5% of the population that buys a hunting license every year. You know, you say there's 1.5 to 2 million is the figures that we all see as to how many duck stamps we bought was sold every year. A lot of people buy them or collected them too, so those people not necessarily going hunting. But let's just say by round numbers, we got 1.5 million. You down to 0.5% of the population of the United States going duck hunting, and take the children, the young people, the women, people like that we're trying desperately to get into our sport, so our sport maintains. Because there's a lot of anti-hunters out there. So we don't keep our hunters, we don't keep our numbers up, then, pretty soon the antis will put us out of the hunting business, and that would be a total waste, because you can take a child, whether you grew up in a rural area, whether you grew up in in a big metropolitan area, and you take him out there and let him experience that, they experiencing something that they didn't even know existed up to then. Well, if you take a small child, a young boy, young man even, duck hunting's not easy. You a duck hunter, you up hours before daylight, you're out there in the cold, it might be raining, it might be snowing, it might be freezing, you're putting out all these decoys, your hands are froze, it's just a bad deal. Well, without success, that child, that young person, that person in general is not going to stick with that sport. They'd be foolish to do so. So, I'm proud to say that mojos have helped people to be successful in hunting, and I thought that's what we were all supposed to be doing.
And not just that it's gotten people success, it's gotten people hooked. Like when somebody experiences ducks over the decoys, and I don't care how they get there. I'm not talking about going out and poaching or market hunting or doing anything like you said is unethical or not morally correct. If you can do it within the means of the law, it's a decoy. I mean, if you really want to get down to the nuts and bolts of it, we have the most anatomically correct carvings ever in the history of America for hunting. We have bows that shoot 400 to 420 feet a second, just, a regular traditional bow, not a compound, I'm not talking about a longbow, but a regular traditional bow is shooting 400 feet a second. We're in fabricated tree stands that guys have welded together, and you can climb up in a tree and shoot down at a deer. We have the most advanced form we're shooting pigs out of helicopters. So, and I understand they're considered a nuisance. Ducks aren't a nuisance. I understand that part of it. But to me, when it's almost funny, it's almost like like sometimes you get shamed if you eat at McDonald's, because McDonald's has this whole aura about it, like, oh, that's where overweight people eat, or that's the most unhealthy. Don't feed your kid McDonald's. We went to McDonald's when we were kids. We got to play on the rides. We got a Happy Meal once in a while, right? But it's almost like if you hunt over Mojo, these traditionalists or these the guys that are against them, they look at you like you're the enemy. And it's like you're a weaker form of the duck hunting population or the duck hunting species because you choose to use a spinning wing. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me at all. Unless you're literally going to dress up in bare feet and an oilskin cloth around your waist and go out there and hunt them like with no advancement at all. I don't understand it. I just don't get it. We have the power right now to shoot a duck at 80 yards and kill them dead. There's turkeys dying consistently right now at 80 yards with the ammo, the choke tubes, the patterning, the engineering behind it. So why not make a decoy that gets them closer to a harvestable rate to where you cut down on those cripples and you up your success rate for a clean, safe shot that harvests them quick and dead? And that's what I've seen Mojos do. I'm not saying that you don't have to work at being a good hunter with a Mojo too. There's different ways and different applications for a Mojo that you've done a very good job with your crew of teaching people. And I want to go into some of that today. I just wanted to really touch on it. The fact that we are literally cutting, what do you cut your nose off to save your face or whatever that saying is? That's really what we're doing. I really think that we need to get grips on it, that there's really no problem with shooting ducks over a spinning wing decoy. You can be a traditionalist, but don't look down on people or try to get them outlawed just because you don't believe in them.
Absolutely. And I look at it like this, Chad. For those of us that's hunted for many years, we've all had a few occasions. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen often enough to be on the absolute X. I mean, that's where the ducks want to go. And it's a feeling like you don't get in many types of hunting. I've hunted big game all over the world. I've been to Africa 6 times. I've done all these things, but you get a big group of mallards when you're on the X and they want to land right in front of you. Then that's just a feeling that's hard to get in any other type of hunting. And the way I like to look at it is the Mojo helps. It doesn't do it for you, but it helps you get more on the X for those days that you're not fortunate to be on the X. And about 99.9% of the time you're hunting, you're not going to be exactly on the X. You got to get the ducks from the X, which is where they want to be, over to where you are. And that just helps hunting. So I really can't give you an explanation for why these people are against it, other than it's just not their way. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it. It's just not their way. But if you don't advance the sport, I do not believe the young people of today would probably hunt a lot under the conditions and with the equipment and the facilities they had when I started hunting, because it was a tough road to hoe back in those days. And we got to help make them successful, or we're not going to have hunters going forward.
Yeah, I mean, when you start breaking down the financial burden, or I don't know if burden's the right word, but you've mentioned it, that being a waterfowl hunter is expensive. There's a lot of gadgets that we have to be successful. Like you said, the transportation, whether it's a boat or a UTV or an ATV or whatever your form of transportation is, your pit blinds, your all of your food plots and farming for ducks, and all of the land that's being maintained for wildlife, and the advancements and the nutritional advancement of wildlife populations. There's a lot of money that goes into that part. And then if you break it down on a smaller scale, just your decoy spreads and your dog and the dog training and your calls and your waders and your gear and your insulation and your socks, everything costs money. So if you're going to go into that as a newbie or a rookie, or something that I was at one time, and something that somebody like you mentors somebody like me in, I want to know that I can be successful. I don't need to be rich. I don't need to own my own property. I want to know that I have a chance to go draw a blind in a public area and give myself the ability to kill ducks without being a world class or quote unquote professional or world class duck caller or world class jerk string puller. All that stuff comes with success. You can't learn that all in one hunt. You got to keep going. And to keep going, you got to get a little bit of taste, a little bit of that flavor of, man, that's awesome. I saw a duck do it. That was so good. And I don't know where you stand on the use of Mojos everywhere. I've never really ever had the view of they should be outlawed. I've never told myself or told anybody, hey, you shouldn't use a Mojo. I've always been a huge advocate of spinning wing decoys and the Mojo brand, mainly because of what you've done and the message that you do, and what the image that you portray on TV is who you are in real life. And I think that story, and I want to get into it in just a couple minutes, that the story of the brand and the company is amazing to me, what you've done with it, where it started and where you've brought it. And I don't want this to come off of like, oh, we have Mr. Terry in town to just be pro spinning wing, pro spinning wing, pro spinning wing. That's not what this is about. I just wanted to touch on it a little bit because everybody thinks, oh, they just want that because that's their revenue. Well, that's not the case. This truly close to your heart, that these apparatuses are going to develop a stronger hunting population and community. Is that safe to say that that's the gist of it?
Yes, that is the gist of it. And I believe everything that you said there. And, hunting has been so big a part of my life since I was probably hunting when I was 4 or 5 years old. I was probably hunting on my own when I was 6 years old, I wouldn't sacrifice that for money. I was making a good living in the owning the engineering company before I ever got the Mojo business. So it didn't have anything to do with money to me. I started it with just a little sideline company. Actually, three of us started it, but when we started, it was just a little sideline company to all three of us. I wouldn't damage hunting in any way over $1. I just wouldn't do it. $1's not that important to me. And I just need enough money to make a living. I was already doing that, As long as I get to go hunting, But that's true, Success cannot be based today on the same thing it was being based on 50 years ago. The world just don't look like that. And there's another important point there, and you know this as well, better than I do. It's acquiring all these things is as much fun for some people as the actual hunting it is, Getting a new boat, getting a new four-wheeler, getting a new decoy, getting a new set of your decoys, getting a new set of your waders. That's just all part of the total experience. And you see people, going to Bass Pro Shop, going to Cabela Shop, these great big stores, You see those people in there, they look like they're about as happy in there shopping for this stuff as they are out hunting. And actually, if you watch them closely, they are.
Everybody, this is Chad Belding again with another episode of This Life Ain't For Everybody. And if you haven't figured it out yet, we're humbled again to have all the way from the great state of Louisiana, Monroe, Louisiana, Mr. Terry Denmon, who is the co-founder, I might be corrected on that, of one of the strongest brands in all of waterfowl and all of hunting, as a matter of fact, Mojo Outdoors. The way that I would want to start this after that, what we just got going off, is that Mojo started in 1999 as a brand, and you were inducted into the Outdoor Hall of Fame, the Legends of the Outdoor. It's in Memphis or Nashville. You went and you've done this, and your cohort, Mr. Mike Morgan, has also been inducted in there. That's a big deal. That's not to take with a grain of salt. And my question to you is, if you would have just stayed an engineer and you never ever developed the Mojo brand, and we're going to get into the Mojo brand in a second, but would you have been inducted into that Legends of the Outdoor Hall of Fame if you would have just stayed an engineer hunting ducks and killing a few mule deer here and there and doing what you did?
No, absolutely I would not, because their philosophy is to induct people in it that somehow changed and improved, made the hunting world better. So I didn't get inducted because of my hunting or anything. I don't know if I'm justified to be in there or not, but nevertheless, their story to me was because of the improvements to hunting that Mojo brought to the hunting world.
And I'm going to start some stories here, and you're going to finish them if you don't mind. And I'm just going to paint a picture, and I just want to see, this is kind of what I visualize. Bastrop, Louisiana, Monroe, Louisiana, dark parking lot, stores are closed. The cars are pulling in. It's almost like a drug deal in America. And I'm picturing these brown bags with this sack, no packaging, no box, just a brown paper bag with this apparatus in there that doesn't look anything like what they currently look like in 2018, somewhat. But the original models, I hope everybody goes and researches. There's photos out there of the original Mojo models. But I picture you and other guys walking up to windows, rolling down, and you sliding this brown paper bag through a window, and the guy reaching out, grabbing it, and then handing you $100 bill or whatever they were at that time. Am I close at that, or was that something that I just dreamed up?
No, you're pretty close. It's not quite like that. Mojo started when a guy named Jeff Simmons, Jeff, he owns a huge, almost Bass Pro size sporting goods store in Bastrop, Louisiana, a heck of a place for such a big store, but Jeff's been very successful. He picked up on the spinning wing concept, which came out of California, probably starting about 1998. But it got to Max Prairie Wings in Stuttgart. They knew about them. They were selling them, but they couldn't get a supply of them. Jeff learned them from them. He started talking to all his hunting buddies around there. All of a sudden, everybody wanted these things, but he couldn't buy them. So he called our third partner in it, who was a guy named Murray Crow. Murray Crow's a guy I grew up with since very small childhood. His family and my family were family friends over in very rural northeast Louisiana. His family was rather large farmers, but Murray, even though Murray's got a college degree in agribusiness and all that stuff, his father and his brother had died, and they had gotten out of farming, and Murray was tinkering with cars and race cars and pulling tractors. He can build anything like that. But he's also an avid hunter, so he'd hang around Simmons Sporting Goods, so Jeff knew that. So Jeff just called Murray and asked him if he could build some of them for him. Now, it's in the middle of duck season in North Louisiana at that time, Murray didn't know exactly how to how to duplicate the ones that were coming out of California, because if you'll remember, I think you were around in those days, those guys used a small, high-speed motor. They had to slow it down because a little motor of that time was probably turning 2,500, 3,000 RPM. You needed wings to turn 600, 700 RPM. They had to slow it down, so they used a pair of little pulleys and a little belt, and the little belt was an O-ring. Okay, and it would call a lot of ducks, but it wasn't a real good device. And so he asked Murray, said, Murray, can you build me some of these? And he said, yeah, I'll build you some. So he called me and said, you know how to size these little pulleys? Now, I'm duck hunting. Murray's family and my family owned duck hunting property together, but Murray would never duck hunt. I'm duck hunting on those properties at this time, and he starts describing this decoy to me, and I said, tell me again what you're talking about, Murray. And he started talking about spinning a blade and the white on one side, and dark on the other. It made no sense to me at all, And so he finally said, I don't know, Terry. He said, I got one of these things. Jeff gave it to me. He wants me to duplicate it. I don't know how to size these components. Can you do that for me? I said, oh, yeah, that's duck soup. That ain't no problem. I'll come up there tomorrow and we'll size them, And so we worked out what turned out to be the Mojo mallard, and that's a pretty interesting story. People seem to liking that, but I'll not get on that right now. So I forgot how many Jeff needed, but it was in the hundreds. And of course, every time they got out there, then there's more people that wanted one. But so Murray recruited a lot of his buddies around the town of Bastrop there that they build racing cars together, and they were tinkerers all. So they cranked up and started making as many of these things as they could. And every day, at the end of the day, he would take all that they could make that day to Jeff Simmons, and Jeff had people waiting for him, and he'd sell them all that night. They never owned one for the second day, and it got a joke going around town. That's what you were referring to. They say, well, people were throwing their expensive shotgun in the back of their truck so they could put their Mojo up in the cab. Now, obviously that's not true, but it did make a point.
And so at that time, were they being sold at retail in the store? Did he have his sporting goods store going back in the late 90s, or was it a parking lot deal?
Oh no, this was a big. Jeff had a big store at that time, so
he did.
These were customers in his store.
So in layman's terms, or in short, there's a guy in California that's not too far from here, 2.5 hour drive from here. I drive by the farm all the time. The guy that's had the spinning the blade, and the story goes is that, and you've showed me the videos, is that when people would get far away from this deal and look out across the rice check, or out across a rice field in that part of California where rice is really prevalent, like it is in Arkansas and some parts of Louisiana, it looked like ducks. This blade was spinning, and at that time it wasn't even spinning at the speed that you have them spinning at now, because obviously the size of the motors and the belts that you're using now. But that is kind of how that whole phenomenon started. And I called it a phenomenon because it literally was like a new drug. You see new ammo come out. I've been introduced to new guns that come out. But the craze that I wasn't even I was barely duck hunting at that time. Like in 98, I started, 97, 98. The craze that was going on the duck hunting community at that time because of this apparatus was crazy. I mean, it was like what you're explaining. People were like literally didn't care if they had their gun. They just knew that they needed to have that spinning wing decoy to go to the field with.
That is correct. And I had a guy from California who happened to be a product designer, and he told me that, and I don't know how he knew this, and I don't know if it's true, that someone observed ducks working fans that they was using to dry vegetables and fruit with. And they'd take these big fans out there and dry them so they could pick them earlier. And I guess they gave off some degree of that flash, and these ducks would work them. And so that's what got them started on to doing this. The very first one had a blade, they call it the goalpost device. It had a blade turned on an H-frame like a goalpost, just a blade turning, because you don't really have to have a decoy. And then these guys, came up with the first commercially successful one. It was called Fatal Deduction, and it was built and sold by a guy that was a rice farmer there in the Valley of California, and he's the one that got the craze started. And then, of course, when we built it, our success came from just building a better mousetrap.
And why, when you say better, is it more of a shelf appeal deal that made it better, or does it actually work better? That better mousetrap, was it a better success rate on ducks or a better, the motion of it? Or is it because a guy like me will walk in and go, man, that looks like a duck on the shelf? Not to mention with the motor and everything. Was it more of the aesthetics of it that made it a better mousetrap, or was it actually more, were the results a lot better?
Well, it was just a much mechanically improved device. As I was explaining before, these people are using a little pulley belt drive system. That wasn't a very good system. So when we examined that, and we figured out right quick that's not the best way to build it. And then I have to give credit to my partner Murray. After that, we knew you needed to hook the blades, which were the wings, to the directly to the motor, and you don't have this little transmission system, which was the weak point in there. So he took a large motor, and he's used to building race cars, so he did all this out of aluminum. He took a larger motor and put the wings directly to it. And the trick to that is the motor that he was using at the time, which happened to be a Caterpillar blower motor out of a cab of a Caterpillar. Those devices in those days, all that big machinery run on 24 volts. These things were running on 6 volts. It's not commonly known by a lot of people, but in DC motors, battery-type motors, as compared to AC motors like your house motors, the speed that the motor turns is proportional to the voltage that you put to it. So this motor probably turned the standard 2,500, 3,000 RPMs when Caterpillar hooked 24 volts to it. He hooked 6 volts to it. It reduces it then to 700 RPM. So now you don't have to have a transmission system. You just hook the wings, the blades, the wings directly to the 2 motor shafts. Got a motor shaft coming out of both ends of that motor, and they turn in the right speed. So it just was a better machine. Aesthetics didn't help us in the first year because he was just buying decoys wherever he's getting them. Like you say, he's putting them in a brown bag and selling them. So there wasn't a whole lot of aesthetic appeal back then. But we did come up with a Mojo brand name at that time. So I believe you could easily say we had the best brand. But the fact of the matter is the decoy he built was just better than any other decoys on the market.
So I just want to make sure I have this right for the people listening is Jeff gets wind of this through the duck hunting community around Stuttgart. He comes to you because you're an engineer, or he goes to Murray?
No, he just calls Murray.
He calls Murray. And what's Murray's specialty?
Tinkering and building things,
He's a tinkerer.
They were big. His family was big farmers, but his brother and his father died, and Murray got out of farming. But he just loved to race cars, build cars. He tinker. He's built rifles. He built anything. So Jeff knew that, and so Jeff just looking for someone that had the capability of building these, plus Murray had a shop. And so he came to Murray and just simply asked Murray to build them. The only way I got involved in it in the beginning was because I was lifelong friends with Murray, and he needed some engineering help with the little system that they were using in California that we didn't use anyway.
So in reality, because of your friendship with him is how you got involved. He didn't just call your engineering office he was like getting price checking engineers to come up with this apparatus. You were buddies with Murray at the time also. So there was a triangle of friendship going on here that, got you 3 involved to start the brand together.
That is correct.
And since then, have you bought those? Are you the sole owner of Mojo now?
My family is. After probably 6 or 7 years, those guys wanted to sell out, and there were a lot of people that wanted to buy the Mojo company, so they wanted to sell it to someone. So I didn't think it was the right time to sell it, and so I just offered to buy those 2 out, and that's eventually what happened over a couple-year period of time until I bought all the stock in it. Some of it's in trust for my family and everything, so I don't individually own it all, but my family does.
I got to get in on that family. How I mark it is if you're using binoculars and you're looking at a guy's duck spread, or you see drone footage, or you're up in Canada and you're driving around, you look out and you go, oh, somebody's hunting over there. I'm going to say, and I might be wrong, I'm just throwing a number out there. I'm going to say that 90 to 95%, I'm going to say one number. I'm going to say 95% of people that duck hunt say, oh, they got a Mojo going. Look at the Mojo going. Oh, they got a couple Mojos going. And the reason I'm saying that is that your brand's strong when there are competitors out there. There have been competitors that have come and gone. There are currently competitors out there. And it's always referred to as a Mojo. Now, there are other brands out there, and you know how you know that what we're loyal to, but they're a Mojo. And where you're from in Louisiana, and if anybody's ever been to New Orleans or that part of the country, and you correct me again if I'm wrong, I'm just shooting from the hip here a little bit based on conversations that you and I have had over the last 6 or 7 years. Witchcraft and voodoo and things like that. If you walk the streets of New Orleans and that part of Louisiana, there's a heritage or a history of voodoo, of witchcraft, of things of that nature. There's ghost tours all over. I mean, every time I've been to Mardi Gras, there's ghost tours going on, things like that. Is that the origins of this brand? Or does it mean something that you got your Mojo? Is it dancing? Is it music? Is it vibe? What is Mojo?
Well, it's kind of a little bit of all of that. Having grown up in a really rural part of the South, happened to be in Louisiana, I had heard of voodoo, but I really didn't know very much about it at that time. But the two strongest voodoo places in the United States are South Florida and South Louisiana. That's where the people came in from, from Africa and from the South Seas island country who practiced the religion of voodoo. But it's a kind of a funny story, It's kind of makes us look stupid, but I'd rather be lucky than good, And so before Murray ever produced one of these devices, he said, "Well, we ought to give it a name." He'd say "we," but it wasn't me. I'm just helping him because he's my friend. He's building them for Jeff Simmons because Jeff's our friend also, and he needs them built. And so he said, "What do you think we ought to put in there?" So I said, because it's his deal. I'm not even in the deal at the time. I said, "I don't know, Murray, but I do know this." I said, the corporate trend in America today is short, easy to say, and easy to remember. No one says General Motors anymore. It's GM. It's Microsoft. It's Apple, one word, Apple, So it ought to be something along those lines. And he said, "Well, that makes sense." Says, "What do you think it ought to be?" Well, I didn't want to name his product for him. And I said, "Well, you remember on our farm," he knew my family, it was like I knew it. We had a little device that my dad called a Mojo. We didn't really know what it was. I think it was a little mechanical device. Had a gasoline motor, had a clutch, had some steering handles on it and whatever. I think it was supposed to have been like an old garden plow or something. I don't know. But we used it mostly to pull empty trailers and stuff around because it's so easy to hook up compared to backing your tractor or your truck up there. And my dad called it a Mojo. And so he said, "Get that Mojo and bring it over and hook to that trailer, So I said, "You remember that?" He said, "Yeah, I do." I said, "There's no word easier to say or remember than Mojo, so let's use it." So I had my graphics lady in my engineering company make him a bunch of stickers that says, I think the first one says Mojo Duck. After that, we went to Mojo Mallard. And if you buy one of them old ones, every one of them got a sticker on the inside on the motor. Second year, they had a serial number on them, actually, And so we go on, like I say, it's middle of December then, so it's probably not another month or so of duck season. He goes on making them every day until the end of duck season. The demand for that time dies and it just stops. And I would encourage Murray. I watched that, and I seen how many people, if everybody in Bastrop, Monroe, Louisiana, every duck hunter's got to have one, everybody duck hunter in the United States is going to have one. So I kept saying, Murray said, he's supposed to be in the car business. He's supposed to be robbing parts off of wrecked cars and selling them, which is a heck of a good business, but he wasn't working at it. He wasn't trying. I said, "Murray, you ought to keep on making these things." I said, "You can sell a lot of them." "Nah, I don't want to do that." And so next week I'd say, "Murray, you ought to make these things. I believe you sell a lot of them." And no, I don't want to do that, And so one day I knew, I've been around Murray my whole life, I knew he didn't like the business part of business. He'd make it. He'd produce it. He'd do the work, whatever he got to do. He don't like the business or the financial part of business. So one day, I don't know why I did this. I was kind of just testing the water, I think. And I said, "Murray, if you want to go in that business, I'll go in it with you." He said, "I'll do that." So we decided, then we cranked up in March. Now here we come to the interesting part of the story. So, Murray could make them. He didn't need any help doing that, He at least thought I could run the business part of it, finance, get it financed and do all that stuff. I don't know if that was true or not, but that's what he thought, But neither one of us could sell them. So we said, we got to have somebody that sells it, So Jeff, we went back to Jeff, and so the three of us formed a company. I said, "Okay, well, I'll go do all the, stuff. I'll get us a bank loan. I'll start making taglines and logos and things like that," which I can't do, but I had extremely gifted graphics lady in my engineering company, so I charged her with that. I said, "Go make logos and taglines and do all that other stuff, And one day she walks in my office. She said, "Do you know what Mojo means?" And I said, "No, ma'am, I ain't got a clue." She said, "In that case, you're the luckiest SOB alive because it means magic. So quite by accident, you have named your product a magic mallard."
No way.
Yeah. So, like I said, I'd rather be lucky than good.
But I mean, how it's just like, because it's become, it creates magic in a lot of ways when those, and what we were talking about it on the way out here from the airport is that having 300 or 400 mallards over mojos in a peanut field or a pea field in Alberta or Saskatchewan. And I say that because some of the footage that you guys have gotten up at Ranchland the last couple seasons has been amazing. Like some of the best duck footage that I've ever seen in all of the outdoor history, which I want to get into that in a little bit too. But that is magic. And it's just so unbelievable that she comes in your office and it falls into, you name it after a tool on your daddy's farm. And did you ever get to ask your dad if he named that tool because it created magic on the farm?
No, unfortunately, my dad had just died by the time we started this, However, my mother has patted me on the back a couple of times for giving him the credit for doing so. But if you go to the dictionary or whatever, the word mojo means a charm. Which it'll get the word magic in there, but it's to give you a charm. And in the voodoo world, the voodoo women, the little bag that they had put their chicken feet, seashells, or whatever all those little devices were, was called a mojo bag. And a lot of those women that practiced that religion would wear that bag up under their skirt in their waistband. It's just to bring them luck during the day, And that was pretty much the definition of mojo until 1960-something comes along and Muddy Waters records the song "I Got My Mojo Working," and it became so popular, and all these people recorded after him that, he changed it to "I Got My Magic Working." In the case of that song, "I Got My Magic Working" with the women, But nowadays, if you got, I see that word being used in football and everywhere, so he got his mojo going, So it literally has Muddy Waters really changed the definition of it to literally be magic instead of a charm.
And at this time, this is all going on, and you're creating magic for all these duck hunters around Louisiana and Arkansas, and it's starting to spread. Are you a duck hunter at this time? I know that growing up, you had a lot of experience with big game, I believe, from the stories in the past. But are you an avid duck hunter in the late 1990s?
Yes, Murray's older brother and I were both avid duck hunters. Like I say, our families own some properties down in Catahoula Parish. You've been there. You've hunted Honey Breaking. We've actually hunted our farm. It's pretty much a duck mecca down in that part of the world. And so we had these lands, but Murray would never hunt. But I was hunting, not every day because I had to work, but I was hunting every weekend. And whenever I could get off at the time we were making these, and I got one of the very first ones and took it hunting. And I still didn't believe it. I'm going to tell you right now, look at that thing. I said, I ain't calling no duck. I've been calling ducks my whole life. Somewhere or other, they were calling a duck.
So you haven't. So you heard about the phenomenon in California. Simmons comes. You and him and Murray start putting these together. They're building them. You start to sell them through the Simmons Sporting Good retail location in Bastrop. You hadn't really hunted them. You're hearing stories of them, and now this is the first time that you personally witnessed or you personally hunted with the Mojo mallard.
I got one of the very first ones that Murray built. I don't know if it was the first one or not, and I remember going hunting and way before daylight, and I got my favorite pit blind up. Decoys already around. I just leave them around all year long back in those days. And me and this one more guy went hunting, and it's kind of foggy. You can't see very much, so I wait out there, totally lacking any type of enthusiasm, and stick this thing down a decoy. I kind of look around to make sure nobody's looking at me, because I don't know if this is a good idea or what. And I'm just slowly wading back to my pit blind because it's a good bit before legal shooting hours, And when I do, I hear, and I turn around, there's about 50 mallards landing right on top of that thing. I said, wait a minute, maybe we got something going on here,
Wow.
So, and we were killing a limit of mallards then. And as best I can remember from having told the story over and over ever since the day that it happened, we was probably averaging about 9:30 in the morning, limiting out. And after we got Mojos, we was averaging about 7:30 in the morning, limiting out.
So there's, being 2018, and you concentrate on duck numbers, there's a lot less ducks in the flyways now than there were 15 years ago?
Well,
I'm asking that in a sarcastic way because all the numbers that come out are best numbers in history in the last 40 years, in the last 50 years. So where is the proof that when you turned around and you saw those 50 mallards backpedaling, and I didn't mean to cut you off, Mr. Terry, but where is the biological or scientific proof that when you started this company or when the first one came out in 98, 99, why are the duck numbers so high and so strong up and down the flyways? I'm not saying that they're easier to kill. I'm not saying that you're going to have the best duck season in your life, but that could be due to refuges, ethanol, the migration being halted by Mother Nature, mild winters. There's so much that goes into it, right? Where's the proof? And that's the theory that we started this conversation with. Y'all were killing limits of mallards by 930 in 1999, 2000. And here we are almost 20 years later, and there's more ducks than ever in the flyways.
Yeah, the golden age of duck hunting is now. I'm not saying the population hadn't been as high or a little higher in the past, but it's never been very much higher since they've been keeping records than it was in the year 2016, I believe it was, and 2017. So obviously we haven't hurt the duck population. The competition is much greater now, and there are refuges now where ducks can get completely away from hunters. And I think that's good. Hunters complain about it, but look, we got to give the ducks a break too, We got to raise, a lot of ducks. That's just something that's needed in hunting for all species. There's more white-tailed deer in America today than there has ever been, including before white man was ever in America. A lot more here today. So that kind of gets us into a whole new story, which I won't go very far into. That game is here because of hunters. If it pays, it stays.
We talk about it all the time.
Yeah, and but that's true. It was great hunting back then. It's great hunting today, but conditions are radically different, as you mentioned. Competition is much greater. Temperature, climate change has changed the migration routes. Pressure has changed the migration routes. Duck just won't fly up there in your decoys every day and let you shoot at them. It just don't happen. They wouldn't be here if they did. They wouldn't survive as a species. So conditions are different, but it's not for a lack of ducks.
So Sunday morning, Sunday rolls around and you guys do what you do to end your weekend, and Monday morning comes around and you're in a county commission meeting, you're in a building meeting, you're talking with a contractor, you got a big engineering meeting that following Monday. Is your mind just racing? Are you like, I'm giving up the engineering world, I'm closing the doors, I'm selling my company, I'm going into duck hunting business? Or was the adrenaline and the emotional part of it just like the passion was just right there? And that's obviously the brand has grown into what it is now in 2018. But that following Monday, or those those weeks coming after the inauguration of it, were you just on the ceiling?
No, I was not, Chad. And the reason I wasn't, it wasn't my deal at all, And but I wanted I could see the potential in it. There wasn't any problem seeing the potential in it. I mean, if they'll buy them in California and they'll buy them in Stuttgart and they'll buy them in Monroe, Louisiana, they'll buy them anywhere people duck hunt in North America. And as we have later proved, pretty much all over the world, But that was what would cause me to encourage my friend Murray to go into it. I thought it was a golden opportunity for him, and I was willing to help him any way that I could. He really needed something to do, and I didn't at that time.
What if you had it to go back again? Would it be something to where you would have went out and in today's business world, you can go out and get a line of credit. You can go out and get investors and capital and private money and a lot of money to. Would you have grown it the same way that you did? Were you piecing it together? Is that safe to say that you were, or were you guys? Did you have? I guess what I'm trying to say is there's no way that you could keep up with the demand. So take me through that when it went from building 2 a day to building 100 or 200 or having 20, 50, 60, 100,000 of them ready by duck season. How does that all mature?
Well, it was a challenge, without question, because we were dependent upon Murray to build them. And Murray had a small shop that was suited for making these however many every day he would make for Jeff Simmons in 1999, but he didn't necessarily have the shop facilities to make whatever we thought the demand would be. And we had no idea really what the demand would be. In a meeting between the three of us, we were beating that around before we ever made the first one. This is in the year 2000 now. Before we made the first one, well, Jeff was going off to Sports Inc. As you know, it's a buying group show, lots of retailers, lots of vendors there. The next week he was going, I said, I'll beat it around while I'm there, and by the time I come back, I'll tell you how many I think I can sell. And Murray says, okay, I'll do the same thing, and when you come back, I'll tell you how many I think I can make, because we're making them, we literally taking a decoy and cutting the back out of it and reaching in there and installing a motor, and screwing a peg into the bottom of it that you can mount it with, cutting these wings by hand. I mean, we're not doing anything high volume at that time, So a week or two later, I wanted the Jeff come back and he said, I talked to all them guys. I believe I can sell 7,500. So Murray holds up a piece of paper. He said, that's a number I got. I think I can make 7,500. So okay, so I write a business plan, send it to the bank, and we borrow enough money to get us through that. And when the year was over with, we had made and sold something over 15,000, about twice what our forecast was. But there was a lot of people in this business at that time. Patents had not issued, and anybody wanted to make one could make them, and they were making them on their kitchen table and everywhere else. So there was a lot of people supplying them to the market. But as time went on through that, we went through a fairly natural progression. We started finding people that could cut wings for us, they'd cut 100,000 wings for us, with some mechanized procedure. We had milled wing shafts. You remember them big old long milled aluminum wing shafts? We found a guy that would make 200,000, I believe the number was, wing shafts for us, even though we only needed 100,000, but he'd make the 200,000. That's the minimum he'd make. He'd make the 200,000 cheaper than we could make the 100,000, So we found those people to help us, and about, I believe the second year, we developed our own decoy body. Up to then, we were just buying decoy bodies, We happened to hit up on an old decoy that Flambeau made in those days called the Enticer. It wasn't really even intended to be a hunting decoy. It kind of looked somewhat like a feeding decoy. Had a base set on the ground. We buy, I don't know how many of them things, 50, 100,000 or something like that. Cut the base off of them, cut them all up and make them. But it was still pretty crude, at that time, even though we were getting to where we were making more and more and more and more of them,
So some of the questions that I think are important with the evolution of the brand is, you put a Mojo out and it's supposed to be magic. Obviously that's not the case. It never was, and it did. When ducks saw it, they were attracted to it. They decoyed to it. They finished on top of it. They still do today, but it's not like it's given. Like you turn on a Mojo and it just happens. And if I was to ask you, like, what is the main function of a Mojo when it comes to the hunting, the hunting platform, like, practically, what am I going to do? What am I trying to do when I put that in my decoy spread and turn it on?
Even though these devices have been around for 20 years now, the use of them is not well understood by most duck hunters. And the main benefit of a spinning wing decoy is a long-range attractor. But in the early beginnings, you turn it on, the ducks landed, on top of it or pretty close, and you just saw a lot more ducks than you did. So it did not foster the thought that it called these ducks from maybe 5 miles over there. We had a crop duster in the first or second year we was in business, I think the first year, that told us he could see one from 8 miles away because he knew where the decoy was and he knew where he was, that crop dusters are. And that white flash that's given off that the human eye can't see correctly up close, you have to get quarter of a mile or more away. And if it's a real clear day and you can get a mile away and you can see it, or you take a pair of binoculars and see it, then it becomes a flash, And we have some videotape showing real ducks landing in low light or just loafing on the water in low light. It's more visible in low light, that really shows all this flash type stuff, So that is how ducks find other ducks, is because of that flash that live ducks give off. Ducks are gregarious. They want to be with other ducks. Plus, there's probably the number one issue there is safety. If ducks are flying around looking for a place to land, if it's a feeding time of the day, they're looking for other ducks that are feeding. If it's a roosting time of the day, they're looking for a place where ducks are roosting or loafing or whatever ducks are doing at that time. So they see all this white flash. They think that's other ducks. They come over and they see your decoys. Then, that's a calm set of ducks. So obviously there's no danger there. And so the number one benefit to begin with was the long-range attraction of it. However, all the hunters saw was ducks landing on top of it. So it gave them the impression that it was a finisher. And in the early days, it was a great finisher. Naturally, as they catch on to it, I have a theory about that too that I'm pretty sure is pretty close to being correct, that as to why they don't finish on it as good as they did in the early days. But there's no information that suggests that they're not as attracted to it as they were in the early days. So, when they don't finish on them, too many hunters take them out of their weapon bag. They don't use them. They put them up, and that's a mistake to do that because you give up that long-range attraction ability, and so a duck that's going to fly 3 or 4 or 5 or 1 mile or 10 miles or whatever it is way over there, he's not ever going to even know your setup's there. You put the spinning wing there, he can see it depending upon the sky conditions that day. He can see it for several miles, so he'll come over there. Even if he won't finish, you got him to come look at your setup. So, the logical conclusion of that, and this is what we do, that if ducks on a particular day want to fly up about 50 yards from a spinning wing, they don't want to come in closer than that, take the thing and move it 50 yards, move it 100 yards. We put it on the dry ground back behind us. Get the ducks to within the vicinity of your spread with the spinning wing decoy. Don't force them to try to get any closer to it than they want to get to it, and then work them with your duck hunting skills. It makes perfect sense, but we haven't done a good job of educating the duck hunters to that point yet. Even though we've tried, we just haven't done a good job.
And like when ducks, whether you're in the flooded timber and ducks are getting off the rice fields to come into the timber of Arkansas, they see that whirlwind, that grind or whatever you want to call it of ducks working a hole. So then all of a sudden 10 ducks can turn into 40. 40 can turn into 100 in a hurry in the timber. It's the same over dry corn or dry peas in Canada. You get 15 working and the other one's getting up off the roost, see those ducks working. So it sparks something in their curiosity in their mind of saying, hey, let's go, that's where the food is. There's other action going on over there. And like you said, birds of a feather flock together. So they, naturally go check it out. Well, the first ducks were over there because they saw that flash. Now those other ducks see that flash plus the live ducks, and it creates this motion where they get in a race. And I've seen it so many times where they start making those false runs in those dry fields. And it starts because of the mojo. And where I'm going with this, Mr. Terry, is if you turn the mojo off at that time, you lose them. 90% of the time, in my experience, and I've tested it, like, I wonder what would happen if I stopped the mojo. And I know that you have different settings and interval settings. And what I've seen in the dry field especially is that once they start on that thing and then you try to turn it off, you might get a couple to finish, but a lot of times you lose that big bunch. It's almost like they're in a race to get down and they keep seeing that flash and they're like, I got to get in front of those ducks. I got to get to that food source. Am I onto something there, or have you tested that to where it's not a finisher? Because to me, it finishes a lot of ducks where you want them to be. And a quick story before you answer is I was with a Mojo hater one time in North Dakota, and don't put them out. We're going to kill them without. Okay, no problem. No problem. Laying there in our blinds. Might as well have been taken. Might as well not have even been there. Put them out. Put them out. Put them behind us though. No, put them out. I lied. Put them out. Here they come. Boom. Right? Hey, we're filming. I don't want them on film. So put them behind us. Well, they're trying to land on them behind us. Mm-hmm. Well, put them back out front. Get them back out front. And it was almost like this pride thing to where really you just admit that they work and that this is fun and that it's powerful and that it's going to be a memorable experience. I think they are a finisher in a lot of instances. Not saying I'm not arguing with you that your theory of attracting ducks to get them within your realm of your decoy spread isn't correct, but I've seen them finish a lot of ducks.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about that, and I didn't mean to imply to the contrary, but my point was their main benefit was to attract ducks from long distances, Not to say that it wasn't a finisher. In the early years, it was a super-duper finisher. Some days today, it's a super-duper finisher. And depending upon where you are in the migration route, if you down in Louisiana, they done been called, shot at, decoyed, mojoed, everything done happened to them, and they get tough down there. But my best lesson of all that, and I've had some stories like your story, I haven't hunted with them. Obviously, they wouldn't do that with me there. Well, maybe some of them would, but I haven't happened to be there when they did. But I've had outfitters telling me that story. But in the very early years, when we would be hunting in Alberta, And this was before we either had remotes or we didn't have remotes that would turn off all your decoys. And mostly those guys in those days, those outfitters would just hardwire them so they could bring the control of the hardwire right to their blind. They could turn them off. And so I've been up there hunting many times, and, we would be running Mojos, doing good on ducks. Here come some geese. Geese not very attracted to them, don't like to land very close to them most of the time. I've killed a lot of geese doing that, but typically speaking, they don't want to land that close to them. So we'd turn the Mojos off, shoot the geese. We'd be hanging around there, and we hadn't seen a duck in about 10 or 15 minutes. So somebody said, well, ain't been a duck in about, I forgot to turn the Mojos back on. Turn the Mojos back on, here the ducks would come, So that's the best test that I've ever personally witnessed.
And to hear, stories like that, and you hear them all the time, and I've witnessed it all the time, of you almost get in a panic, like turn the Mojos on because you can see the ducks out there. And I've seen it. I mean, I see it all the time where they get off the roost and they're going one direction, and you hit them with that, and you might have to hit them with a call or, get their attention vocally also, but it's amazing what happens when they see that, the confidence that it builds in a hunter's mind and his psyche of saying, oh, it's on now. Now, that's not to say that you can't get on the X like we talked about before and have your odds, pretty good odds of decoying some ducks. But I would much rather experience, if I'm hunting dry corn or dry peas, 5 or 6 times I do a season, because I'd much rather hunt ducks over water. That's just me, my personal opinion. But I'm not doing it without a Mojo, and I'm not going to turn the Mojo off. Now, if it's not a finisher and it's just an attractor and they get over there, then I would challenge somebody to finish big wads of ducks by turning all your Mojos off once they're within 50 or 80, 100 yards of your spread. I think they're going to land right on top of it. Now, my question where I'm leading into this is, why the different heights of poles? Does it matter the amount, the distance that the spinning wing Mojo is off the ground or off the water? Because you make them with short poles, there's been long poles, you have them on floaters, you have different bases for them. Did you guys get studies back that the ducks, it's more natural to see that flash at different levels?
Well, we haven't done anything in our 20-year history, a 19-year history, I guess it is today, based on any type study that anybody sent us. Now, they made a lot of studies back in the early days about the effectiveness of spinning wing decoys. And they did a lot of them in Minnesota, but they did some in other states too. And they'd basically go out there and 30 minutes on, 30 minutes off, 30 minutes on, 30 minutes off, And because you can't really compare one day to the next day in duck hunting, as you well know, in waterfowl hunting, But past that, we haven't had any studies. Most things we've done, we've just kind of done by trial and error, trying to figure out what ducks do, trying to figure out a duck's about like trying to figure out a turkey is not easy to do. Pole height, the distance of your decoy off the water does make a difference. And I cannot tell you exactly when it is. Some days you put one of them up on a high pole and they'll eat it up. The next day you put it on a high pole and they don't like to come up there that close to it. And I have been able to find no relationship that I can identify to that causes that. But, like you've been on our farm, we go by long stalks of square tubing and chop them up in all different lengths and keep them laying around there for use, And some days we put them on a high pole and they work great. Some days you put them on a high pole and they don't work great, And the only thing I know to do is we just try it, We just try it. If the ceiling was low, certainly you wouldn't want to put it on a high pole, But if the ceiling's clear, it might help you that day, and it might not. You gotta let one of my standard rules of duck hunting, of waterfowl hunting, is you gotta let the ducks tell you what to do, So you can't hardly figure out everything. Some things are standard in duck hunting, how to put out a spread, and how to get hid and some things like that. But as to what those ducks are going to do, you gotta let them tell you. And so you just got to start off. And we have a standard rule. You've heard us say it a jillion times on Mojo TV. If what you're doing ain't working, jump out and try something different. And that's what we do, And we probably get out of the blind more than most. Well, I know more than most hunters, because we have really aggravated some outfitters around the world, especially in these places where birds are easier to kill, like in South America, and some other places, Mexico and some other places like that. Because we're going to keep adjusting that spread, not only to the ducks work, but to they work in that frame out in front of us where we can film them right. Because we probably don't shoot at half the ducks a typical hunter would shoot at, So you learn a good bit about duck hunting when you're not only just trying to kill them, you're trying to get them to come around in front of you and pose in this frame, And so if they're not doing it, we just jump out and start rearranging everything, And some outfitters didn't go for that in the beginning. Some of them kind of gotten used to us now. They were, what are you doing? So we're changing your setup. That's what we're doing. We're going to make them ducks work right out front if we can.
So as the president and CEO of Mojo Outdoors and the host of Mojo TV, would you ever hunt without one? Do you ever hunt ducks without a Mojo?
Well, the only way that I would hunt without it is if I thought I could do better without it than I could with it. I'm not going to be hard-headed and just say you got to hunt with them. I haven't found that occasion yet. I found the occasion when pressured ducks, these ducks that I'm talking about that don't want to finish on them today, they have been pressured, probably not only locally, but they've been pressured, for a long period of time because I'm in the very bottom end of the flyway, and you know how ducks are. If you get a fresh a wave of ducks comes in with a front, those ducks are pretty easy to work the next day. Next day they're a little harder, and you can shoot those ducks about 2 or 3, maybe 4 days, and they get to where they pretty difficult to handle, and that's when you start changing your tactics. But if I thought I could kill ducks better without one than I could with one, I'd leave the thing in the truck. People think that we say you ought to have a Mojo product because it's self-serving to us. It's going to make us sell more, but that's not true. Most of the duck hunters that's going to buy one, whether it happens to work on this particular day or not. They've got it. They've got it there. So we don't view that as affecting our sales very much. We just call it like we see it. If they'll help you kill them, then you ought to use them. If they won't, then you should not use them. However, I hunt a lot, as you know. I hunt about 100-something days a year, not all duck hunting. And I haven't found a place yet when I thought I'd kill more ducks without one than I could with one.
When you're concentrating on the species of duck that we call the teal, whether it's the green wing, the blue wing, or the cinnamon South American teal, that to me, in my opinion, is one duck that's never going to get tired of a spinning wing. Do they? If I know that it's September, I know that it's the early season. I know that the blue wings are kind of the first ducks down the flyway in the Mississippi flyway. Is that the reason they decoy to a spinning wing so good? Is because it's early in the season, they haven't seen a lot of pressure. Not a lot of states offer that early teal season, or do they in that flyway? And lastly, is it something to where the level that a teal flies out and the way that they work the water and the spread is they kind of do it more on a lower level? They don't really come from a high altitudes like a mallard would. Is that the part of it, or why is a teal just like it's almost guaranteed money in the bank? If you see a flock of teal in September, they're coming to that spinning wing, right?
That's correct, and it's a little bit of everything that you say there. Some ducks just decoy better than other ducks, and some ducks are decoy to mojos better than other species of ducks do. We can't tell you why that is, but we know that it is true. And teal are just ducks that love to decoy, And on our place, at certain times we have huge groups of both blue-winged teal in the early season, September then, and green-winged teal in the later season, come in great numbers, and you'll tell they're migrating. They're up really, really high, and we can see them come on to our farm. And if we're there hunting and we run in mojos, more than white, they headed to Catahoula Lakes where they're going to, about 25 air miles from us, And but they'll see those things. You can see them fall out from, however high they are up there, as high as you can see. But to answer your question, teal are a species of ducks that decoy easily. They do like to get down on the water, just fly around. They see that motion, they're going to come to it. They think it's other ducks. They're just going to come to it. They'll at least buzz them while they'll land in them or not. So it's a variety of factors.
When on Canada, when you're up there, this is the other end of the spectrum. We talked about teal early season. Now you go late October, which is relatively late for the Canadian waterfowl season. It opens as early as September 1st or September 5th. Same time teal's opening down in Louisiana, Arkansas, Texas. You have regular duck season open up in Ontario and Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan. Does a guy at at Ranchland, when you own that company, and I know that he has a friendship with you, I've had many times where you have a group of mallards come into the decoys early light, almost dark. It's legal shooting hours. They see those big Canada goose full bodies, and they're just woof because they say, oh, I've seen that before. I'm going in there. That's what they're used to seeing. If that's the case, and you can kill them like that, because I've heard this said a lot, you don't need a spinning wing up there because they see the full body goose decoys and they're in there. And I get that. I've seen that happen on September 15th when you can barely tell the difference between a drake. You really can't when they're flying to the human eye, which is a weird deal, kind of, depending on the way you look at it. Why do they use spinning wings in Canada, Mr. Terry, if they decoy so well to a full body goose decoy? I don't understand why you would go through the trouble of charging batteries, toting these things out there, making sure that your wings are there, you don't lose all these parts. Why do they use them?
Well, if we were there, it would become obvious why we used them. But I can tell you that all the outfitters we hunt with, they've used them every day before we got there. So there's a reason that they're using them. And you alluded to it a while ago. They have those huge fields up there. And it's not just a matter of scout, that they hunt by scouting, and they bring the scouting reports in at night, and then they decide from there where you're going to go the next morning, and that scouter will mark the location where most of those ducks were feeding. And oftentimes they'll put up they use driveway markers up there a lot now. I'm sure you've seen that. They go out there and put that driveway marker up in the dark when those ducks leave, and then they can get back to it in the morning. But sometimes you can't always set up in the location where they were hunting before. And sometimes there's groups all over that big field. So the real benefit of the spinning wing decoy at that time is one of two. Number one, it's going to cause ducks to come to that field that wasn't in there the day before when the scouter, so you're going to get more ducks in there. The other one is you need to bring them to that part of that big field where you were hunting. A few years ago, we was up there with Rob Reynolds, our first morning to hunt. So we go to this huge field that they had scouted and seen a lot of ducks in there, and geese too. And they had permission to hunt it. So we go over there, and before daylight, we run into some more hunters. Well, there was two guys there, and they were friends of the landowner, and he told them they could hunt in there too. Huge field, so they leave us and go over to the other side of the field. We set up, full body goose decoys, because Rob don't use duck decoys except for Mojos. He puts full body goose decoys. He'll put 4 or 5 Mojos out there, We had one of the best days of duck and goose hunting that I've had in Alberta, and it was snowing and getting colder and worse and worse. When it was over, them two guys drove over at us. They hunt the same field we hunt now. They had hardly killed anything. They didn't have any Mojos.
Imagine that.
Yeah, they're gonna come to that.
You know what else? Thinking about that, I remember if you go north of where we're at right now, we have a bunch of mountains. You can see we're surrounded by mountains here, and a lot of growing up, our dove hunting was done in those mountains. We'd find a creek that ran down through a canyon, and we'd get around a tree, a roost tree, or a tree that they'd come loaf on in the afternoon after they went and fed and got water. And you'd be lucky to, see 15 dove or walk in and jump shooting them or whatever we did when we were, being brought up in the mountains, but walking behind my dad. And then you guys introduce the spinning wing on a dove. Now, being a hunter and going, well, this is working on ducks. A guy like me should be able to be like, well, I'm going to take my Mojo mallard out there and put it up because it's going to work on dove. But nobody ever did it until you guys did it with Mojo. I remember my first one, 1 mile from where you're sitting right now at this place called the Opio Ranch. We put 3 Mojo dove on a corral fence, and it was an amazing show. It was like being in duck season, back flapping right over the decoys and shooting dove and having fun. And yeah, they were coming to us. They were decoying to us. We had a couple just regular standard dove decoys out there with the clothesline clips. And then we had the Mojos. You don't sell that many dove though, right? I mean, not many people hunt dove over a spinning wing decoy, or is it just guys like me that are loyal to the brand, or do you actually sell some of those?
People always seem to be surprised to find out that our Mojo doves are number one selling SKU that we have. Now, we only make one spinning wing dove decoy. We make some more dove decoys besides that. And we make a number of duck decoys. If you add them all up, they're probably pretty close. But as far as our number one selling single product, it's a dove. And one reason we do is that it's so successful, And you never hear anybody say it's unsporting to shoot a dove with a Mojo, do you?
It's weird.
It's just duck. It's just duck. You can't do that. But Doves, as you know, probably about 70% of all doves die every year, whether you shoot one of them or not. They kind of like quail are. So they don't live long enough to catch on to them. And so, dove is one of those animals that breed and reproduce a lot, die off fast, as opposed to some animals. The elephant would be the upper end of that scale that, bears are the same way, they don't reproduce very much, but they live long years. It's just nature's way of, you can be in one category, you can be in the other category. So you're never going to hurt the dove population by hunting. Market hunting wouldn't hurt the dove population.
Dove hunting in the South is I'm not saying that it's as big as duck hunting or as big as turkey hunting per se. It might be, but it's a religion down there. When it's almost dove season, it's a social event, right? You're talking big parties, barbecues, cold beers. You're talking some music after the hunt. Everybody gathers in the morning. They go out. It's a big deal in the South, right? Is that where the majority of your sales are?
No. Our sales are scattered all over, but certainly the majority of them are across the South. And we have one big box store that's our biggest seller of them, and that's because they have about 125 stores right across starting in Texas and going to Florida, right across the South, which is dove hunting. It's a tradition, Actually, more people hunt doves in all those states than hunt ducks, and simply because a lot of people go dove hunting for that opening weekend for the fellowship and the social aspects of it that won't go hunting again that year, So that's good for the sport of hunting, It's an excellent sport for take a kid, get them started. You're not out there in the freezing cold. You're not out in the water. You're not out in the ice. Take your wife, take your girlfriend, take your daughter, take anybody who wants to go. It's just a super duper sport. And so it's the highest participation sport across most of those southern states. I haven't checked the figures. Whitetail might beat it, but I doubt it.
So you have the ducks going, you got the dove going, and then tell me the first phone call you get or the first bell that goes off in your head about freaking pigeons. Like I in this area of the country, pigeons are known as like the garbage bird or the dump bird or, just stuff that you'd see in old abandoned buildings in the old parts of downtown. You took me on a hunt with Neil and the guys up in Idaho, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 years ago.
Soar no more, yeah.
Soar no more. And I think we killed 180 dove that first morning. I think pigeons. I'm sorry, in a corn. Yeah, I don't want to say dove, but pigeons. In a cornfield, I think I don't even remember, but they're coming off of those cliffs of the Snake River. Those big canyon cliffs of the Snake River, and they're decoying like it was like being in duck hunt. We're in a layout blind, a little bit of whistling. I think they were blowing a whistle a little bit. They had these full body pigeon decoys that Soar No More and Neil specializes in up there in Idaho. And then again, I don't think that you're going to kill pigeons with just those full body. Then they look good. They're a good looking decoy. But in my opinion, you turn the Mojo on and boom. And again, 10 turned into 30 and 30 turned into 60. And there was times we were killing 20 or 25 birds out of a flock. Exciting, and they're freaking pigeons. So here we are again, the beginning of this conversation, the legends of the outdoors, why you were inducted into the Hall of Fame. Now all of a sudden, Terry Denmon's in the mix with his Mojo brand of making pigeon hunting fun, and it makes sense, but it makes no sense because why wasn't I'm right by Idaho. I have so many pigeons right here. I could have been doing it for years, and it's a blast. So tell me the first time that happens, how that happens, and how it just took off, because now you go you go 2 or 3 times a year.
Yeah, when we first started, the first few years, we had some demand from Europe because pigeon hunting is a pretty big sport. In Europe, they kill rock pigeons over there. And but we had no way to supply their demand. It's be outfitters or somebody called us trying to get some of these decoys. And then we started getting contacted by Neil Hunt, the Soar No More guys in Idaho, and they were pigeon hunting, and they were killing a lot of pigeons. And I know some people, down where we are that would pigeon hunt, but not a lot of people. It's a missed opportunity. It's one of the most hidden sports that's out there. Pigeons love the decoy, and they love the decoy on Mojos. And they're most anywhere that in the United States, especially if you have any degree of agricultural land. I know up from where we're sitting here now all the way up to where Neil and them is in Idaho, there's a lot of dairy business, and down in Texas there's a lot of feedlots from Kansas all the way down into Texas, Nebraska all the way down into Texas, a lot of feedlots, and those pigeons congregate around there. Well, they're a nuisance bird. In Idaho, those dairy people, and I'm not talking about little mom and pop dairies. These are big corporate dairies. They tell me that a pigeon will eat about 2 pounds of grain a day. That sounds like too much to me, but that's what they told me. So you start adding that up over thousands of pigeons every day, 365 days a year, turns into a lot of grain. So those people up there will actually let Neil and them come and hunt around their dairy facilities simply because the pigeons are such a nuisance. Well, if they're a nuisance and they are good at sports, you experience as good a sport as you'll ever have. I tell people it's like mallards on your best mallard day. There'll be 25 of them come by, cup up, and come into the decoys. More of them that you can shoot at. So it's a great sport, and it's fast growing. You're starting to see it pop up, all over the United States, here and there and everywhere. People ought to do it. It's no limit. Most states you're going to have a hunting license, but that's all. Other than that, it's not a game bird. It's just a nuisance bird. You can go out and kill all of them you want to.
Have you eaten them in America?
I have.
Are they worth it, or were you dare?
They're good eating. So many of them that we kill, we kill out of those dairy lots. And I don't know about eating those. That's a bit of a question mark for me. But I have eaten them when we killed them out in those grain fields, like the day you mentioned a while ago. If they're out feeding on grain stubble, stuff like that, they're good eating.
So comparable, because I've had great pigeon in Argentina. Like, it's as good as that meat, same kind of flavor up here, or are they a little bit better down there with all the agriculture in Argentina?
Well, I think I'd have to give it a little bit to Argentina, but also there's probably very few, let me back up. There's probably very few people in the United States know how to cook them. They know how to cook them in Argentina.
Do you cook them like a dove?
I don't cook. I don't even heat water, Chad.
Well, the ones I've had have been like a reverse sear, and I just started learning this reverse sear method of, cooking it on low heat and then at the very end turning the heat up, and that's what they do in Argentina. They sear it both sides, and they get that outside kind of crispy, but it's still medium rare on the inside, and it was awesome.
Yeah. Well, like most fowl, like most birds, you can't dry it out, So if you dry it out, it's not much edible. So I suspect that they just know a lot more about cooking pigeons in Argentina than they do in America. But probably if somebody played around with it, and you're in a pretty good location to do it, and you're a good cook, unlike me, and so you ought to kind of experiment with some of that.
Well, we're working on this cookbook, and I think I'm going to put a pigeon recipe in.
Sure.
Might as well.
You should.
So you got the Mojo mallard, and then you have the dove, and then you have these pigeons being killed over spinning wings. So does a retailer come to you and say, hey, the Mojo mallard's too big? It's too hard for our customers. We're getting a lot of complaints from our customers that it's hard to move around. And that was the evolution into the baby Mojo. And I'm asking this in a way of, are you just adding value, or why would you cut down on the size of a decoy when you're getting the results you're getting? What sense does it make to now give them two smaller forms of that? Is it mainly because they can put two in the spread now for a reasonable price that they can afford? Or what was the thinking and the ideology behind the baby Mojo? Because they come two to a set, right?
Well, Cabela sold them, and so I don't know how many we sold over about 4 or 5 years in pairs come in a backpack, but it's all price point related. The Mojo mallard is bigger and more durable than the baby was, but the baby is a price point one. However, if you hunted for 10 years and you kept yourself equipped with decoys, it would be cheaper to use Mojo mallards because they'll last so much longer than any of these others because they have such a large motor. You're not hardly ever going to burn that motor up out of a Mojo mallard. Where the baby has smaller motor, smaller wings. Body is about. So the body is very similar. When we made the baby, we called it the 78% duck until we had to put a name on it because we just shrunk a Mojo mallard body down to 78% of the size of a Mojo mallard. And but it's strictly a price point thing, So people will buy a price point; they just will,
So, would you, as the owner of the company, as far as the effectiveness though, is the effectiveness going to be the same out of the Mojo mallard as it is out of the regular size mallard, the Mojo mallard? And I don't want to get into the one that you introduced on the market last year because I'm really excited about that with the results that we got with that and what you have coming out after I saw it at SHOT Show this year in Vegas. do you get the same effect out of the baby Mojo? Is the motor spinning the same? Is the speed on the wings the same? And now you have two of them that you can put in two different parts of your spread. To me, it sounds like a good deal. But you're saying because of the longevity of the bigger one, that's a better dollar spent.
Over multiple years, the Mojo mallard would be your cheapest route. Well, it'll last 10 years. You might have to replace the wings or something like that, but you're not hardly going to. That motor's not going to fail you. Where in the baby Mojo mallard, the motor's much smaller. You'll eventually fail that decoy. Nobody will take, including us, takes the wings off of them like they should to transport them back and forth, and so they bend the motor shafts in the little baby just by throwing it in the back of the truck, the back of the boat, the back of the four-wheeler, the back of the whatever, with the wings on it, And you can't hardly fail the Mojo mallard. So if you're a heavy-duty hunter and you kept up with it for 10 years, it'd be cheaper to run Mojo mallard than it would be Mojo babies. But, you understand price points. Some people, maybe they can afford a baby and they can't afford a Mojo mallard. But like you say, you get two of them. We try to keep the wings turning about the same speed on all of them. Now, the Dove's wings turn faster than the others do, simply because it has a much smaller wing. Same motor turning a smaller wing, turns faster. And then we came out with a little Teal decoy, in which we labeled to have super fast wings. I can tell you this, the faster you turn your wings, the better it is until other problems start coming along, vibration, sound, noise, that type of stuff. But the faster you can turn the blades within reason, the better, the more attractive ducks are to it. Doves are to it, pigeons are to it.
So now you have the brand going in growing, like we've talked about, from the ducks to the dove to pigeons and crows being shot over these. And we're going to get into some more of the applications soon because you have an extensive line of turkey hunting products, predator hunting products. But before we get into that, I'm going to bring my brother in here in a little bit to talk about the success rate that I've witnessed personally over the last 5 years of shotgunning coyotes, which I don't know if you can get a more exciting feeling in all of hunting. I don't know, maybe a grizzly bear, we're going to talk about, you call them bears, but a coyote charging a Mojo decoy and being able to consistently kill them with shotguns, that's awesome. We're going to get into that in a little bit, but I want to go into a little bit about this cat that you run with. And I assume he's one of your best friends in the world, Mr. Mike Morgan, Mississippi River Rat, Mr. Mike Morgan. He's a outdoor TV pioneer. Is that fair to say?
That is absolutely accurate to say. Mike got me into the outdoor TV business.
Was he a host of a show that now tell me the origins of this. I don't know if I've ever learned this. I've been around Mike a lot. I love him to death, being in camp with him, being at Mojo headquarters with him. He's just awesome. He just doesn't have any give out, right? He doesn't have any quit in him. He loves to hunt and just go hard. And just tell me a little bit about those origins though of the friendship. Was it before Mojo? And how did you get involved in hunting across the country? Because if you research Mike Morgan, he's also in the Hall of Fame in the Legends of the Outdoors. And I assume that most of that is based on his trailblazing efforts in the outdoor TV world, because he is a pioneer in that area. So talk a little bit about how you met Mike and how that happened.
Yeah, the basis for inducting Mike into the Hall of Fame, as the Hall of Fame tells me, is because he is an outdoor TV pioneer. And remembering our conversation a little bit earlier about, they select people, various people can nominate people to go into that Hall of Fame, and then they're voted on by a committee. And the ones that, receive enough votes, then they go in. If they don't go in the first year, they can go in the second year. Fortunately for me and Mike, we both went in the first year we were nominated, but it's supposed to be based on you advancing the sport in some way. Whether that sport is hunting, fishing, outdoors, or whatever it is, a lot of fishing people in that Hall of Fame. But I met Mike Morgan a year or two after we started Mojo. And it was the very first SHOT Show that I went to, and I don't remember what year it was. It was probably '01. It was in New Orleans. It was the last time it was in New Orleans. And Mike and his partner was named Jim Jones. They owned a production company, and they produced two award-winning TV shows that both aired on the Outdoor Channel back then. And one was called Hunting Across America, and the other one was Fishing Across America. And I didn't know those guys or had ever seen those shows, but they showed up in our booth at the SHOT Show and wanted a Mojo to go hunting with. They hunted a little lake up at Greenwood, Mississippi. You know, Greenwood's good duck hunting country, a little lake called 6 Mile Lake. And they had been the kings of killing ducks on 6 Miles Lake forever because they'd been hunting for many, many years. They knew exactly where to go to on different conditions, depending on sky conditions, wind, or whatever. And they'd hardly ever get beaten. And all of a sudden, somebody was beating them almost every day. And so they go down and see what he's up to. And the guy's got a Mojo. And so they had to have a Mojo. We didn't have very many of the new ones then. That's when we first came out with our own body, the Landon, Drake body. So we gave them one that we happened to have there in the booth, and they went and put it out. And to hear them tell the story, this guy goes buys him another one. Now he's got two. And so he's beating them again. So they go buy another, and then they got two. And they basically created what we now call the multiple Mojo theory. Because on some days, you can put out 8 of them and kill the devil out of ducks. When you put out one, they're not that attracted to it. I don't know what it is. I know it's got a good bit to do with sky conditions, but I've studied that for a long time. I can't tell you what it is, but there are days when if you have a lot of them, they'll really come to them, and if you don't, you don't. So that's when I met Mike Morgan, and I just got to know him, and then I bought a sponsorship on their Hunting Across America TV show, and then they started wanting me to go hunting with them, so I went and filmed some hunts because that was obviously in our best interest, from Mojo, even though I didn't know anything about hosting a TV show or anything like that. I went hunting with those guys. They were literally pioneers in the business, and then I bought the title sponsorship for Hunting Across America, and it became Mojo's Hunting Across America. And probably most of the time you knew it, it probably was Mojo's Hunting Across America. And then they had a third partner that was not active, that had acquired their stock through someone left it to them, and so they wanted me to buy that stock and become a member of that company, and I did. And so I became the third party in that, and we did that for several years. And about that time is when, as you and I know too well, the supply of outdoor TV shows, they got more channels, more TV shows, and pretty soon the supply pretty much exceeds demand. So the first downturn in the economy, where it's hard to sell sponsorships. So that business became, for a period of time, not profitable back then. So actually, we shut that company down, and when they did, Mike Morgan came to work for Mojo at that time, producing our TV show for us.
And what year did it officially go to Mojo TV? What do you remember the year it was?
I think it was '07. So we're in about our 11th year of Mojo TV.
About 11 years, and with all the different platforms out there, from Hulu to Netflix to the way people are getting their content, YouTube even has YouTube TV now. You have cable still, you have satellite, you have so many ways of going on and getting duck hunting action or finding footage by Mojo. Is there a reason to stay on network TV still, in your opinion?
In my opinion, there is. It's generally concluded that pre-programmed TV, by pre-programmed, it's formatted to a very specific format, 28 minutes, 30 seconds like we do now. And it comes on at a specific time, does not necessarily fit, especially the habits of the younger population today. And they like to view things on mobile devices and whatever. So we are in a transition state. I do not think TV in your home will ever go away. It will obviously become more on demand as time goes on. It's already doing that, But I think it's a very important portion of delivering your message to in our case, the hunting public. That's who we want to deliver our message to. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, so I think we got to play around with all these different things. But I don't see TV as you and I know it going away anytime soon.
So you and Mike are traveling the country, Canada, South America, Africa. You go all over the world, really, filming Mojo TV. Mojo TV isn't a waterfowl hunting show. It's made up of, I would say, mainly waterfowl hunting content, but on there is the predator. You have turkey episodes, you have mule deer episodes, you have a dove hunting episode, a pigeon hunting episode. Does it ever get tiresome of having that camera crew at your back all the time? And no, I don't have them on camera yet. Whoa, don't, not yet. Hold on. Or finding out how do we hide them today? Or you get up there and you got somebody you want to hunt with and they're just like, oh God, it's going to be just tiresome with the camera crew here. Does it ever get old to you, or would you have it any other way? Do you love documenting all these trips?
Well, I don't know if I can give you the true answer to the question you got. I have certainly become accustomed to it. And now when I go hunting, when the crew's not there, I feel like I'm not doing something I'm supposed to be doing. And so I just got used to it. But, your point is it's radically different. People think you go hunting and you film what happens. It's not anything like that, You got to go out there and make it work for TV some kind of way. What we do, Chad, is that we air waterfowl, or at least wing shooting, in the third and fourth quarter. We're on Sportsman Channel, and we do that because Sportsman Channel said they'd like to put our show in their waterfowl block. And so we air all our, I'm sorry, that's not correct. We don't air anything but wing shooting shows in the third and fourth quarter. In the first and second quarter, we air our other shows, which are predator, turkey, big game. I've had some sheep shows on there. I've called a grizzly bear. I've called a brown bear. I've called a black bear. I just go off and do those I called a lion. I called a leopard. I go off and do all those things. And we air those in the first and second quarter so we can stay in the waterfowl block in the third and fourth quarter. But no, it hadn't really got old to us. People come up to me, and I know they do you the same way, say, man, I'd like to do what you like to do. I always tell them, I say, there's a whole lot of difference between going hunting because you want to and going hunting because you have to, because they don't, you organize one of these big hunts, it don't matter if you're sick or what, if you can go, you go sick, and then, you get tired. It don't matter if you're tired or not, you got to go. So that part of it is the rough part of it. But as far as the camera being there and have to hunt for the camera, it does hurt you hunting. You're not going to never kill as much making TV as you're going to make, or making video as you're going to just do out there hunting. But I've gotten used to it. I don't give it much thought.
Yeah, and I think I'm in the same boat. I think a lot of it's one cool thing about it is a lot of times when something happens, remember back in the day, you'd be like, you wouldn't believe this. And then by the time you're done telling the story, they're like, you're right, I don't believe it. Like there's no way that a grizzly bear charged you. And now you can say, oh, I got it documented. I have all these hunts through your historic career of hunting the world. You can show people what you've experienced. And it's not a raw look at me. It's like, hey, this is what's out there. This is what we get to experience as a hunter, as an outdoorsman. And that's why, the artistic value of TV production and in the field production and post-production and color correction and audio correction and interviews and telling a story and building a personality into these episodes. And there's just so much that happens in a hunter's life. And every morning there's something different, whether it's a flat tire or a hot pot of coffee or a dog whimpering because he's so excited to go, or a kid's first coyote hunt or a girl's first duck hunt. There's so much that happens in our eyes that we get to witness and experience as an American hunter. That's what I love about the outdoor TV game, about being able to go out and be humbled by Mother Nature on a daily basis. Sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't, but being able to go, man, today was cool because we got to see the Northern Lights in Canada. Or today was cool because we met a farmer in Kansas that waking up in Reno, Nevada every day of my life, I had no idea this man existed. And I really had no idea the passion that he put into cultivating the land every day as an American farmer. And that's what the TV part of it has brought to me personally, Terry, is that you can't explain that to somebody with just going hunting. You could say, oh man, it was amazing. The mallards were doing it perfect. Yeah, I get it. I understand what you're saying, but when you could visually show them, like, I got to meet this guy. I got to hunt with this guy. I got to be in his house today and see his game room or have a cup of coffee with him. I got to help him fix his combine today, or I got to meet these Hutterites up in Canada and they brought me in and helped me fix my flat tire when I broke down. There's so much that you get to experience. And that's what I love about outdoor TV. And I'm sure you would agree with that.
Absolutely. And I have a saying, and it's the sight, sounds, and smells of the hunt. And that's what we're trying to do, is bring the experience to the hunter. I'm not trying to be a TV celebrity. That's not what I do. That's not what I'm about. I just want to bring hunting to the viewing public. Now, true enough, it does help my business, but that's not the only reason I do it. I could do things that would help my business more than what I do, but I want to bring them the sights, sounds, and the smells hunt. And I guess I've kind of overused that saying because I had a cameraman in a foreign country this past year tell me, said, we're kind of sick of hearing the sights, sounds, and smells of hunting. I said, well, you need to be filming somebody else, buddy, because that's what we're out here doing, It's not just about killing, that's not the deal, Naturally, when you have success at anything, you wouldn't want to be a race car driver your whole life and never ever win. You'd get tired of that and you'd go do something else. You got to have success to stay in it. But you don't have to have success every day, You just have to go out and enjoy the outdoors. It's such a great place, It's kind of sad to me that so many of the youth in the world today, and especially in America, are growing up in these huge metropolitan areas, and that's getting worse with time, And they don't have opportunity. They're not missing it. They don't even know, for the most part, that it exists. And those are the people that, somehow we try to help in some kind of way. If we can't get them all out there, maybe they'll see some of these videos that people like me and you produce and put on all these different mediums. They all out there. If anybody wants to look at them, they sure don't have no problem finding them.
Yeah, and I think, it's maybe a duty and a responsibility, but the part that I enjoy most, like I was saying before, is, and you just brought it to my mind, is the sights and the sounds and the smells of what we get to do. And it only takes about 2 to 3 days, and I miss the smell of a mud room. As bad as that sounds, like old just marsh mud or rice check mud from Louisiana or gumbo that you call it, and going into a mud room where the waders are hanging and the heaters are on and your Mojos are charging and your guns are taken out of the case and dried off with a cloth and your ammo's getting ready for the next day, and you're wet, something's wet, you dry it out, and you got your boats parked in the bays and they're ready to go for the next day full of fuel. And there's just all of those sights and sounds and smells that you're talking about. Then not to mention when you're walking towards the lodge or the cafe in these small towns of America that we get to, that we cherish across this country, and the gravy and the grits and the eggs and the bacon and the barbecue and the crawfish broils, which we'll get into in a little bit. That is what we're painting the picture. And I've said it before, Mr. Terry, is that the sooner in your hunting career that you can respect and appreciate that part of it, that we get to do that we're not entitled to do it, that we truly are blessed to do it, and that it's not about stacking them up all the time or piling them up. Because I think some of my favorite days are just when we were driving around your farm and you were teaching me about the moist soil units and the passion and the love that you have for that land, and that how much enjoyment that you've brought to so many friends and family and friends of friends and family of family and family of friends, that you can't put a dollar sign on that. You can't put a value on what that does. And TV and outdoor production and content deliveries open those doors for us to be able to not brag. We're not trying to tell you to watch our TV shows because we got to hunt. Yes, we get to hunt some nice places. We've got some nice doors open for us, and we truly are humbled by it and appreciate it. So it's our job, in my opinion, to say, hey, a monkey could kill the ducks here. We got the best decoys in the world. We got 2 Mojos. We're going to kill ducks. But it's the experiences outside of that actual pulling of the trigger. Don't get me wrong. I'll say it again. I love killing ducks. I love cooking ducks and eating ducks. But I also love this right here, knowing that I'm friends with Terry Denmon pretty much because of outdoor TV. I don't know if I'd have met you if I would have just been a duck hunter, but because of my pride in the Mojo brand and us having a partnership for the last 7 or 8 years, TV has allowed myself to become more than just a partner with you or a sponsor that you sponsor their TV show. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I know what you're saying. If you think about what you remember from past hunts, well, certainly on the days when it was just golden, the decoy, the ducks just fell in your decoys, or, the biggest deer come out, you remember that. But other than that, it's little bitty things that you remember. It's getting wet, it's getting cold, it's a steaming cup of coffee. You see that so many times in a duck blind or a deer blind or whatever it is. Those are the things you remember. It's not just about killing. You brought up about the management on our farm. I have a really good duck farm. It's what my buddy Phil Robertson calls an ancestral duck hole. Them ducks been there forever. When I first went down there 25, 30 years ago, some old guys then said when that was in virgin hardwood, that's where them ducks wanted to go. They get imprinted on a place like that, and even though it's changed radically since then, it's gone to row crop. Now it's back to About half of it's in timber and half of it we manage moist soil plants on, And I spend a lot of effort, as you pointed out, on those moist soil plants. And I work on them pretty much all summer long, spend a lot of time, good bit of money on it. And then when duck season comes, I start traveling around the world. I don't really get to hunt there very much. But people, especially people that don't understand hunting, say, well, you go down there and you grow that food just so you can kill them ducks. I say, ma'am, I feed millions of ducks. I better don't kill 50 a year because I'm not ever around there before. But I'll keep on growing that food, and I'll keep on feeding them as long as I'm alive, because that's just, it's rewarding is what it is.
The heart of a hunter, right?
Yeah,
you have a lot of compassion for the animals. If you don't, we're not murdering them.
Oh, no, I love all these. How could you kill them if you love them? I say, well, if people didn't hunt them, they wouldn't exist anymore. Yeah. I know that's hard for some people to understand, but if you'll study Africa, that's where it's most visible. Look at the white-tailed deer today. We talked about that a while ago. You think those white-tailed deer would be here if it wasn't for hunters? No. Hunters are raising them. They're providing habitat for them. They're feeding them. They're putting out all kinds of things for them just so they can hunt them. Well, on a white-tailed herd, on a not a high fence thing, what percentage of the population of that whitetail herd do you think would ever get killed? It can't be 10. It's got to be less than 10. Sure. Of all the deer that's on any one piece of property, there's no way they're killing 10% of them, If it is, it couldn't be much more than 10% of them, Now, I'm not counting if you had to cull the does off of there, okay? Sometimes they get too many, and you got to cull the does off there. You just have to, And, which brings up another point to me. People beat up on us so bad about going hunting, and they've really gotten on Africa now, about going Africa hunting and killing all this stuff, And the fact of it is, if you want to check the facts, the government crops them animals when the hunters are not there. South, the southern part of the continent of Africa, where most of the safari hunting goes on. It's, so many months of monsoon, so many months of drought, and they just hunt in the wintertime. It's dry, and the summertime rains all the time, so hunt in the wintertime. When they're not there, they cropping elephants, they cropping buffalo, they cropping most everything over there, So
Explain that word cropping to me, please.
They killing them, okay? They have too many animals, and they killing them. And, they're doing that with white-tailed deer in the United States, I know that from having been on the commission, They get overpopulation of deer in some of these leased areas or places where people won't kill them. They just go there and kill them,
And they do. I mean, like in states like Alabama, you can kill a deer a day
for 60 days. Yeah,
60 days. Yeah. And then in like places like northern New York, the whitetail population is so strong. The elk population in the western United States, the turkey population, the Canada goose population, specifically in the Atlantic flyway, the amount of conservation and dollars raised through, duck stamps and other conservation efforts by hunters. The heart of the hunter is everything to the success of wildlife populations. And the people need to understand that. So whether it's the Audubon or bird watchers, who I have a lot of respect for, I love watching birds. I love seeing the beauty of Mother Nature. But I want to make sure that there's an understanding of what hunters do. And I've heard a lot of success stories lately of people realizing that, that might not necessarily be a hunter or a quote unquote trigger puller. They understand and appreciate living off the land and hunting and getting back to our roots and that kind of a lifestyle. And it's because of the education that's out there that you can find that hunters really are putting a lot more than just death into the word hunting. And I'm glad that you brought that up. And a guy like you has served so many of those purposes. And I want to go in, you just brought up two really good points right there, Mr. Terry, before we bring Clay in here, who's the host of Dead Dog Walking and leads up, a lot of stories with you in the predator game. I want to talk about two things real quick before we leave duck hunting. You mentioned the word implanting. Implanting means that those ducks or that ancestral hole, those ducks went there for so long that they've been implanted on that area. I want you to give me a little bit of a definition of what that word means. And then I want you to tell me, if they're not going to an area, can a hunter implant ducks to get them to start coming there and continuously go to that area?
You can. The word is imprint, I think.
Oh, imprint.
You can. The reason that they have places they call ancestral duck holes. And I picked that term up from Phil Robertson, but I'm sure he didn't invent it by any means, but it's absolutely true. They just have certain places they want to go to. And obviously you can change that because we've watched in our lifetime, they convert a lot of property to a different food source, like rice down south, rice in California and places like that. Up north, it's more corn. Down south, it's a lot of soybeans. And so they've made a good duck habitat in places that before they converted was not good duck habitat. But once you get a particular habitat, and on any one given day, or any one given set of environmental conditions, weather and so forth, ducks want to go right here and they don't want to go 100 yards over there, And so if I was helping people learn how to duck hunt, and I'd do some of that, that's one of the first lessons, that I try to get them to learn. And you can see that, but how many times have me and you, being experienced duck hunters, sat out there and the X is 100 yards over there, and them birds will lock up and act like they're going to land your decoy. Well, they're not. They're going out there where that X is. But, you keep thinking you're going to get them there. You're going to think you're going to get them there. And the truth be told, if you can, you better get up and go there where they want to land, because that's where they want to go. I have 3 rules of duck hunting. It's actually applicable to waterfowl hunting. First, be where ducks want to be. That's the X. Number 2, be hid. If you can do those 2, you don't need any mojos. You don't need anything. Just go where they want to go anyway and be hid, and you'll kill them, But that don't happen to us very often, so you need rule number 3, and that's make your setup look like live birds, So if you can pull off them 3 simple rules, you'll be a good duck hunter. You'll be a good goose hunter. Any kind of waterfowl, In fact, any kind of bird for that matter.
So I appreciate you. I'm sitting there going, I'm going to ask him about imprinting, and then I said implanting. I appreciate you correcting me on that. But so the gist of that is that you can imprint ducks, because I've heard of ducks being, heavy populations of ducks being in places that they never were. And it might be pressure in one part of the country, they move over here. Like ducks are imprinted on Oklahoma right now, I feel, because of the production of peanuts and corn and the other crops down there. There's a lot of mallard ducks, widgeon, pintail in the state of Oklahoma now. They went there for some reason and they kept going there. Lesser Canada geese go to the Fort Cobb area. They went there for a reason and they keep going there. They're imprinted on that area. But historically, Oklahoma was not known as a mallard state. And now you can consistently kill mallard ducks in that state because they've been imprinted on there. And then you can take it down a little further notch of, if you're going to buy a piece of property and it's not heavy with ducks, can you manage it strong enough to get ducks to be imprinted on it? I've heard success stories, I've heard failure stories, but I think that you can. And it's a challenge. I think it's truly a challenge to change the course of Mother Nature.
Yeah, in that regard, Chad, you can help it. Whether or not you bring it to a real ancestral, well, it wouldn't be an ancestral poll if you change it. Whether you brought it to a real X-type farm or not, or property or not, we don't know that. It would vary, But certainly, if you think about this, what does a duck need? It needs water, it needs food, it needs a place to roost. It needs a place to loaf, and they all want to go basically to the same place, So if the first duck don't want to go there, the second duck don't want to go there. Because one thing that always amazed me on our farm, now we got moist soil plants scattered over 500-something acres. That's not necessarily on a block. It's a bay going back up in the woods here and a bay going here, so it's a lot of different habitat. And so it'll grow that moist soil plants, and naturally speaking, there'll be little openings of open water there. It won't be choked up with the vegetation, And birds will start landing there at daylight. And at 10 o'clock, a bird will come. That bird was in Stuttgart, Arkansas at daylight, It ends up down in Monroe, Louisiana. It goes to that same place that bird at daylight went to. So something within them tells them exactly what spot to go to, I don't know what that is, but it's got something to do with the environment. I was reading a thing the other day that's talking about all kinds of little nerve endings in their eyes is what helps them migrate for these thousands of miles. So they're learning a good bit about ducks as we go along, but we don't know. I don't know a whole lot about that right now, but I do know one thing. The first duck comes to your farm and starts landing in a hole, assuming you have a lot of different options for him. And we do. We have a lot of different places that duck can land. All day long, every duck that comes along wants to land in that same hole. So, that's a lesson that a duck hunter ought to learn. If they're not going to land where you're hunting, they're just not going to land there. You're probably not going to make them land there. Now, you can take decoys and kind of, chip a few of them off. And, you can take mojos. You can take your decoys and chip a few of them off. But most of them going to go to the same place the other ducks went to.
And when you started talking, before this, I said that I had two things that you brought to mind. Is I want to get back to duck hunting, and but you brought up something else when you started talking about white-tailed deer and farms and the evolution of the white-tailed deer and how healthy the population is. I mean, when you have places in the country to where you can kill a deer a day for 60 days, that means that there's a reason behind that much, that many of those deer being taken out of that population. Another aspect of that is predator management, predator control, predator management. Making sure that we keep predators in check. In the duck world, there's skunks and there's hawks and there's eagles and there's red-tailed foxes. They say a fox will kill 1 million adult ducks a year. Foxes do. Adults. That doesn't count the babies or anything else that they run into. Or the eggs like skunks get to. Yeah. So in foxes, they'll go scavenge just destroy a nest. With that being said, we're bringing my brother Clay in, Dead Dog Walking. We've had a partnership with Mojo over the last 7 or 8 years on that. And Chase is sitting in here too. He's had a lot of success over the Mojo products. Chase, can you say hi to Mr. Terry?
Hey, buddy. How you doing? I saw you on TV.
So, and how awesome is that though, that you have a 6-year-old kid shooting his first coyote at 80 yards over a Mojo that comes in and stops. And the only reason he stopped is because Clay Whistle stops him so he could shoot him because he had the rifle. He's not big enough for the shotgun yet. Where I'm going with that is the Mojo product line. Here we go again. The success, the confidence, the excitement level of a Mojo decoy spinning. And why I didn't do it 15 years ago when I first started coyotes, I have coyote calling and trying to kill coyotes. I have no idea. But doing it makes me never want to bring a rifle coyote hunting again, which I'm not saying I won't. But the ideology has always been the exact opposite, right, Mr. Terry? I don't need a shotgun. Not many guys carried a shotgun unless you really knew how to predator hunt. You'd see most guys get really amped up with a 22 250, with a bull barrel, with their ammo, their optics. Everything was just perfect because their precision shooting is what counted. Because a coyote's vitals are only that big. They're very small. So as a rifle hunter, you had to be dead on. But now, and I want Clay to talk about this, I don't think there's anything better, like I said before, in all of hunting, maybe mallard ducks, than a coyote with his hackles up charging. I've seen him jump over rocks, jump over sagebrush, knock your decoys off of it. You've made a tradition, or you've made it known that coyote hunting is the best when you're killing them with shotguns at 15 yards. Is it safe to say that that's one of your top 2 hunting pleasures, is calling coyotes and seeing them react to your decoy?
Without a question, I'll give you a little bit of history about how all that came about. I've been a predator caller since I was in high school, but I was never real avid at it because down where I live, when I was a small kid, there wasn't that many coyotes down there. There was a lot of fox, but nobody called fox in the daytime. They called fox at night. So we'd go out at night a little bit. It was legal back then. We didn't have much for a light. We didn't know what we were doing, and we'd kill a few, but it wasn't, it just wasn't really that successful, but I liked it. But when I started going to Texas, and for many, many years, I used to help this big ranch in Texas with their hunting. They just wanted someone to help them with it. I just loved being out there and hunting, so I helped them with it for years. And I had an opportunity to start calling. Actually, even before then, when I graduated from college, I was working for the government in Bismarck, North Dakota as an engineer, and I got calling more up there because it was better calling country up there. Well, when I got into the decoy business, I said, well, I love calling. And I said, we ought to make a decoy for calling predators. So we made one. I thought it was a great decoy. It didn't ever sell very good. Tell you the truth about it, I didn't kill a whole lot of cows with it either. And so I got to talking to old-time, dyed-in-the-wool callers. Some of these was government hunters and people like that. Dan Thompson, I don't know if he's dead now, but his call company's still around. He was famous for that Red Desert Howler caller, Somehow he befriended us along the way, he's a crusty old guy. And I learned a lot from him and people like him. And so I started talking to him about decoys, and the consensus of the bunch was, well, sometimes they help you and sometimes they scare the thing off. They cost too much money and they're too much trouble to wag around. So I said, okay, I got that figured out. So I'm going to write on a piece of paper. Says they got to be cheap, they got to be portable, they got to be effective, and they can't scare a predator. That's the 4 things you got to do. So we started playing around with it, and then we came up with a little thing that we call the critter, which is the fuzzy top on the speedometer looking cable thing, I can't tell you how we got there. We just tried everything in the country, But when we finally came up with that, it met that 4 criteria, And predator decoys didn't sell too good before then. In the first 2 years that we had that out, maybe not the introductory year, I don't remember, because sometimes it just takes a little while for people to learn this out there. But the next 2 years when we was first selling them, we sold 35,000 a season for 2 seasons, and was always on back order. So we'd have sold a lot more. Like when we'd get 8,000 of them in, we shipped 8,000 of them out, And so, it got people started decoying coyotes. And I was at a show in Birmingham, Alabama, and there was a bunch of coyote callers, standing around a predator hunting booth. And I went by there, and one of them told me, he says, your decoy turns too fast. I said, really? So you been hunting with it? And he said, no, but I looked at it on the thing, it turns too fast. I said, okay. The other one stepped up and said, no, that's not the problem. He said, the problem you got with that decoy, Denmon, is you can't stop the coyote for a shot, and that's the same thing we'd experience. These guys like to call them up and, stop them out there 75, 100, even further than that. If you're long range shooters, you want to stop them several hundred yards, and shoot them with a rifle. And that's the sport we were doing. And there's nothing wrong with that sport. It's great. I don't have one bad thing to say about it. I mean, a sport's a sport. That ain't my sport today. My sport's shotgunning, because what I found out was I couldn't stop them either. And they would lock onto that decoy, they run right up to it, and then they bust at 180 degrees, and they going out fast, and they come in, and it didn't make a rifle shot. So that's what got me to taking a shotgun on the stand was then we'd take a shotgun and a rifle, But that shooting them with a shotgun just turned out to be so exciting, I guess it was. I don't know if y'all know a young lady from down home called Hannah. You remember the real popular Hannah and Kaylee videos? Well, the Hannah half of Hannah and Kaylee is a friend of mine, and she hunts with us a good bit, And she was telling me the other day, said her and her husband, they watch our show on TV, and she said, about the only time I ever see you get excited on TV, I'm not an excitable type of person, in case you didn't notice. And so the only time I ever see you get excited on TV is when you call it coyotes. He said, but, other than that, he said, oh, well, let's walk over here and shoot that hippopotamus. I've never shot a hippopotamus, but I thought that was a pretty good example. But boy, she said, when you go coyote hunting now, you get pumped up, So, I don't have any beef with anybody else's sport about calling predators. Do it any way you want to, as long as you go hunting. That's all I care about. But to me, it's hard to beat calling them right up in your lap and shooting them with a shotgun.
Would you agree with that, Clay?
Yeah, when we go out on the stand, I'm usually with our other, our other brother Clint and Alex Crosby, who and if they want the shotgun, I kind of get upset because I want it in my hands. And now that I'm taking chase out, I kind of have the double-edged sword kind of deal. I want to shoot it at 15 feet because I want to see the action there, but I also want him to shoot one. So now usually I just leave the shotgun in the truck to make him shoot the coyote now. So, yeah, there's no other feeling to see them rushing him like that.
I haven't experienced it, and I've called all kinds of game. I mentioned that a while ago. I've called all 3 of the big bears, and I've called lions, and I did not kill a big male lion. Called them, but I caught them for 21 days in Mozambique, Africa. I did call some of them up, but I didn't call the right one. I did call a leopard up 35 yards and kept it for about 20 minutes, And so, but I tell you, as fun as that was, and as much as I wanted to do it, I've called wolf. I've called, a lot of bobcats and things like that. But of all the big game I've killed, I just like shooting them coyotes about as good as anything.
With the words predator management used, there's a couple different ways or a couple different reactions and feelings that I get about it. Like, one of the things that pisses me off a lot is when I hear somebody, whether you're a hunter or just somebody that had lost a dog to a coyote or a dog, you go into these stores around here, I'll take you there this evening, and you walk in and on lost cat. They're not coming back. Not where we live. They're not coming back. We're in the top 5 most populated cities in America, probably 2 behind Los Angeles per capita of coyotes. And Nevada has a ton of coyotes. So I hate when I hear people say, I hate coyotes. They're useless animals. And the reason I say that is, and the reason I say that there's different emotions with that, Mr. Terry and Clay, is that if I'm a cattle rancher and I'm losing a bunch of calves to coyotes during the calving season, I could probably have that ideology that I hate coyotes because they're tapping into my bloodline, my livelihood, the way that I provide for my family. But really, it's our responsibility. There's another reason right there for predator management, to protect livestock, to protect wildlife populations like elk or deer and all of that. So when people say I hate coyotes, I want to just say, do you understand how adaptable they are? Do you understand how good of hunters they have to be to live out where they live? And they got to catch grasshoppers in the summer, and then they got to eat 2 pounds of raw meat in the winter to survive. And do you know how hard it is for them to survive? And then the ability to be adaptive and adaptable wherever you put them, they're going to survive, they say. So I really wanted to go into that, is that predator hunters don't kill predators because we hate coyotes or hate bobcats or hate mountain lions or hate lynx or whatever we're harvesting. We don't hate them. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I have a huge respect for predators on the way that they live. And when people say, well, they took my dog, hey, listen, they were here way before us. We built these houses where coyotes have been living for hundreds of years. It's our responsibility to protect our pets. If you don't want your little dog or puppy to be missing, you probably shouldn't leave him out in your backyard, because a coyote gets wind of him. They can do a lot of things to seduce him in range. They can dig holes. They can jump over things. Coyotes are a badass animal. So I'm not trying to be on a soapbox. I'm just trying to say is that I just don't like when I hear people say, I hate freaking coyotes, or they all deserve to die. That nothing drives me nuts more in hunting than hearing that.
Well, the old saying is the last two animals on the planet will be a coyote and a cockroach, so. And I don't know much about cockroaches, but I think coyotes will be there. If you think about it like this, originally, like when I was, college age, coyotes were mostly confined to the western United States. They were just coming into. I'm the first state across the Mississippi River. I was just coming in. I'm the first state this side of the Mississippi River. We're out west now. They were just coming into that country at that time, but now they've expanded to every state in the lower 48. In Alaska, coyotes are in Alaska too. They've gone all the southern half of Canada, and I've seen some maps, very clever maps, where they plotted the demise of the wolf and the filling in of the coyote. And so if somebody doesn't control them, they'll get totally out of hand. And like I say, they can be destructive. You just don't. You need coyotes. You need all these other creatures. You just don't need too many of them. And so I really don't understand people that are mad because we go coyote hunting. Now, I'm sure the same thing happened to you, but we constantly get this hate mail because we're hunters. We get these death threats. I probably get 100 of them a year. Which I didn't get very many last year. I didn't get as many as usual. Last year, maybe I'm not as good a hunter as I was. Maybe I lost. So I ain't getting as much hate mail, death threats as I did before. But one of the animals that they after us the most about, the haters, the antis, is the coyotes.
It's nonstop, and we were a part of it this year. And I was, I don't let a lot of things get to me. And when Chase killed his first coyote, obviously was proud, posted some pictures, and here comes the antis and the people who don't know what the hell they're talking about, saying, oh, good job, you're raising the next school shooter. And I took a picture of that, posted it again, and they just got lit up, just how ignorant they are. And a lot of people don't understand how destructive they are, the coyotes. Not just to the animal or the populations for farmers and stuff, but for like a state of Nevada, we're a draw state only for big game animals. So it's a lottery system from anybody who wants to hunt as a native Nevadan, or anybody that's, from another state that can come here and put in their name into the draw system. And we have certain areas in Nevada. I don't know, a lot of people might not understand this about Nevada. It's not like you can go, maybe in Louisiana or in Alabama, you can go buy a tag over the counter, right? Mm-hmm. That's it. Here in Nevada, you can't do that. Mm-hmm. It's a draw state only. And the biologists go into all these different areas and say, okay, the population is X of deer, X of sheep, X of elk. And we're going to this year allow 50 deer to be killed, 25 deer to kill, 80 elk to be killed in all these different areas. Now, if you let the populations of mountain lions and coyotes run rampant, the state of Nevada is losing a bunch of money, because they're now the populations of all those animals are way down, and they cannot provide that tag to the person hunting them. Mm. So not only does it lessen the money for all the farmers, but the state of Nevada loses a ton of money from predation because they can't provide those tags to the people that want to hunt them in licenses and tag sales and all that stuff. So just the respect that you have to give to that animal, it's insane. if you just start looking at it from that point of view instead of just the destructive side that they are and thinking that you hate them, you would change a lot of people's minds.
Oh, there's no question about it, you know, and it even goes even deeper than that. As you get, let's take elk, for example, as the state of Nevada gets less elk tags, there becomes less people interested in going elk hunting because they don't have opportunity to do so. Sure. And that really curtails the money that goes from hunters into conservation, you know. So it's either snowballing up or snowballing down, you know. The same thing happens with, you know, white-tailed deer. White-tailed deer is so adaptable to all the different environments in the United States. That's why there's so many of them. So that's why there's so many white-tailed hunters, and that's why there's such a unbelievable amount of money put in from the hunting community into the preservation of white-tailed deer, you know, and what we have today in terms of a white-tail herd on a national basis, you know, is absolute proof of what we're saying here.
100%. Do you have an issue at all, Mr. Terry, with trapping?
No, I don't have an issue with the take of wild game by any ethical and moral basis. Now, people can raise some complaints about leg trapping, you know, because, you know, they can say, well, the animal suffered till you come got him out of the leg trap. But, you know, I'm a proponent of the idea. It's not a theory by any means, of the idea that, you know, you got to manage all wild game by some logical basis. You can't do it by an emotional basis. You know, you can't, you know, these people that hate us for killing a duck, killing a coyote, killing a deer, killing a thing, they dealing with that one individual deer. They can't see that the whole species of deer benefit because you took that one old buck that basically the herd had no use for anymore, you know, but they can't think like that. They just think like that's a precious life and you shouldn't have taken it. But you can't manage animals like that, especially you can't manage wild animals like that. Now, you can't manage domestic animals either, but nobody thinks anything about it. I got enough pasture for 100 head of cows. And, you know, the rancher's not going to let more than 100 head of cows in that pasture, you know. He's taking care of management in that, but, you know, somebody's got to do it for wild game, and you just got to consider the herd, the species as a whole, and that's not what these people are doing. They're considering these animals to be one individual animal that you shouldn't have killed, and that's just not sound reasoning.
Staying on predator control and why Clay's here, I wanted to talk a little bit about what you mentioned it before, and I'm just sitting here like, if I could roll my eyes at you, I would, because I'm like envious when you talk like this. You go, I've called a brown bear, I've called a grizzly bear, I've called a black bear, I've called a lion, I've called a leopard, and I'm like, yeah, right. That's again, and you've documented all of it. People can sit there all day long and say what they want about calling game and different ways of taking game. And I think that being able to sit down in one location and call game to you, communicating, vocalizing with a wild animal, getting that bear to come to you, getting that coyote to come to you, getting those ducks to come to you, everything that goes into being. And I know that I think that you're obsessed with decoying and calling wild game and getting them as close as possible. Could you, instructional wise, is there a way to teach somebody how to be a successful predator hunter? And the reason that I say that is that you're not going to teach a guy in Florida the same way that you're going to teach a guy out here, because our odds out here are a lot better. Our opportunities a lot higher out here. But could you teach that guy in Florida that might see 2 coyotes a season to be a successful predator caller with your methods? And on a step up from that, could you teach Clay and I how to call a bear, or is it exactly the same as calling a coyote when it comes to the application of being where that you know that there's a bear somewhere relatively close? Is the rest of it the same? And is it possible to teach somebody how to be a good predator hunter?
Sure you could, Chad, and sure you could teach someone how to call bears, but you know, to call any game, you got to know something about that game. You know, that's just a fact of life. You know, you can kill whitetails without really knowing a whole lot about whitetails. You know, you get them coming into some location. You know, they tend to hunt them, especially down south in the Midwest. They tend to hunt them out of hides, stands, blinds, whatever you want to call it. You know, but in calling, notwithstanding the fact that you might just go out there and turn the caller on one day. You know, which reminded me of an interesting story when Mike Morgan kind of first hooked up with us. He had a teenage son named Buck. And that's on his birth certificate, according to Morgan. and so, he'd see us go hunting and whatever. So he wanted to borrow his dad's collar, and him and his little teenage buddy was going to go down the road a little bit and call, and Mike said, well, this is not easy to do now, guys. Maybe we ought to, tell you something about it. Something, don't worry about that. They go out and turn the collar on, boogity, boogity, boogity. Here come a bobcat up there. They shoot it, They come back to the house and say, I ain't nothing to this
This
stuff,
is easy stuff.
So, I've got on some stands, and we've all got on a lot of stands. I said, boy, stand great. It's going to happen here. It don't happen. I got on stands. There ain't no way we're going to call. That's the darn stand. The cow run right up there and jump and you laugh. And so aside from that, just as far as being consistently successful, my view of that is predator calling is pretty simple. It's nothing complicated at all about it, but it's extremely acute to the details. So if you're not going to tend to the details very acutely, in details like when and, what's the most important part of a setup to me is getting on, once you decide there are coyotes there. Obviously, you ain't going to kill them if they're not there, If you have a reason to believe that there's coyotes in that vicinity, then if you can get to your stand without the predator knowing you're there, that's rule number one, Maintaining your, the direction of your scent, monitoring your scent cone, that's number two, People get really hung up on what sound did you play in there. There's a difference in sounds. I'm not saying they're not, but it's not the overriding factor in whether you call anything. It's a knee-jerk to them, When you can call a coyote off of a 800-pound dead cow to come over to a rabbit sound, there's no logic in that. Why would you do that, Except he's been taught his whole life never pass up an easy meal. I don't care if you got one now, go get the easy meal. It's a knee-jerk to them. So you can teach them, and it's really not that difficult. They just have to be committed to the details when they go out there. When they drive away from their house or their camp or their lodge or something, you better start thinking about my scent cone, where it's going to,
And that those details become more acute, the more pressure that the coyotes have on them. The more pressure that they have on them, they've heard every sound. They've heard the door shut. They've seen people walk in. They are educated in some sense to where those details have to be maintained even more in an area where other people have called before. So like you go down to Mexico, like we were talking earlier, you might not have to pay attention to those details quite as much because they've never seen a human, never heard a call before. So they're like your knee-jerk reaction. They're just going to come find out what the heck's going on. But in areas where you get a lot of pressure, those details have to be maintained even further.
There's no question about that. And you brought up, about the guy in Florida. Where I live in Louisiana, I'm in the Mississippi Delta, agricultural land mostly. There are tons of coyotes. And I used to call there a lot. I don't call there anymore simply because I'm not around to call in the cooler months. It's too hot in the summertime to call them. But they are much harder to call there, and it's just not the lower density of coyotes. It's they're more sensitive to what's going on around them. If you can get out in the middle of a big ranch or a big body of public land or something like that, not any roads around, and people haven't called these. The second time you try to call a coyote, you got about 10% of the chance you had of the first time you tried to call a coyote. And I don't know if the 10% is correct or not, but it's real low, down around zero. Well, people don't call them that much where I'm from. They do call them, but they don't call them that much. And so I always, somebody wants me to come coyotes. I say, well, a lot of trucks running around there. Yeah, but they see them trucks every day. They don't pay no attention to them. I said, well, they don't pay no attention to them. But something raises their suspicion just a little bit, and they will not come to the call. Now, I've had it happen to me, and people told me that, we'd be out, say, bush hogging or something like that. Well, it's a target-rich environment for a coyote behind a bush hog because you uncovered mice and bugs and all kinds of things. I've seen them, and it's happened to me. Come out and run along the back of your tractor, eating. You go over and try to call that coyote, he won't come to the call. Something about the call, they have to be, they can't be suspicious. If they're suspicious, they're not going to come in, So you have to get them in an environment where they're not suspicious of you, which gets you back to the rule number one is get into your stand without them knowing you're there. You can't pull up there and slam your car door and walk in downwind, There's an old saying in the predator business about, consider all the environment around you as a pie. You don't have the whole pie. You just got a part of the pie. You're going to contaminate part of it, park in your whatever you're driving in. You're going to contaminate part of it by walking in. Your best bet is to contaminate a small amount as you can, park in the same scent cone area that you walk in on and set up on. You save most of the time, but a predator calling is not difficult. There's nothing difficult about it. You ain't got to learn a whole lot, but the few rules that you got to learn, you got to stick to them religiously. You can't violate them and do much good.
Do you, now that you've been in the call business a long time, do you ever hand call or hunt without a mojo?
Yeah.
Or use them in conjunction with each other?
Well, I more use them in conjunction
Yeah.
with each other. I have found, and I couldn't prove this, it hadn't happened to me enough times. I mean, it hadn't happened positively enough times to prove that. But, like if you're in a non-responsive period, they don't want to respond. I found that if you get on a mouth call and you just get as emotional as you can, I like to liken it to like when a baby pitches a fit and he gets to where he's screaming and whatever so much he can't get a breath like that. Just get on it like that, and we have had success doing that. Now I couldn't tell you, how do you measure whether you would have had success without that or not? But I do believe that you can trigger a response. It's kind of like you throw a bait at a bass. About 8 times you throw it out there, he finally hits it. I don't know if you irritate him or whatever happened, but I like to use. I don't ever go without a mouth call. I got a few mouth calls and my remote control on my lanyard at all times.
And when you say non-response, or that non-response period, I want both of you to answer this. And I'm just throwing out some things here because I don't get to predator hunt much anymore. I'm just obsessed with mallards. So back in the day, I would sit 20 minutes, and if I didn't see a coyote or have action, I'm up and I'm to the next stand. Is that still hold true? And I want you to back that up with just telling me, both of you, like, how long are you willing, if you know that it's bobcat country and bobcat season's open and you can legally harvest the bobcat at that time, how long would you dedicate or commit to that stand? Go ahead, Terry.
Well, bobcats can be slow responders. They can be fast responders too. They'll just bop right in it sometimes. So they're not what you read all the time where they just going to always sneak in. It's going to take them 45 minutes to sneak in. But if I was just bobcat hunting, I would probably stay on the stand 45 minutes. And if I was in coyote hunting, I'd probably stay there 20 minutes. I usually stay about 15 because I just don't have any patience, So, but if I had patience, I'd stay there. But you got to weigh. It depends on your country. If you're in an area like where I live, where you don't have that many setups that you can make without going back and getting your truck and driving to another property, then you'd stay longer on one stand. But you hit a point of diminishing returns. Almost most of the cows we kill within under 10 minutes, and it just depends on how far they're coming from, or if you're having to force a response out of them. And you're not going to be high percentage successful in forcing a response out of them. So if you got a lot of good country, like y'all hunt around here, I'd call not over 20 minutes. If I wasn't messing with bobcats now, I'd call not over 20 minutes. I'd get up and move to the next one. I think when the day's over, you'll be kill more coyotes that way.
I agree. We do the same exact thing depending on the terrain, like you're saying. If we get to a spot where we have these runs that we know the country very well, and we get to a spot where it's wide open, flat country, we'll stay a little bit longer because they can hear. In Colorado, we've hunted in north of Loveland where we saw a coyote a mile and a half away, and it took him, 25, 30 minutes to get there. And we saw him with binoculars right away. And so they can hear that far in that type of open country. So we'll stay a little bit longer. In tight, rolly hill country, 15, 20 minutes, you're up and gone. And that's a good thing for kids so they don't get bored.
Sure.
Same thing
and
with
me.
Me too. And I would
I'm worse than the kids you got.
I would say the same thing about that most coyotes are in that 10 minutes. So if you kill most of your coyotes under that 10 minutes, once that 7-minute mark, you're like, okay, what's the next stand? What's the next stand? Yeah. And bobcats, 45 minutes, especially here in Nevada. But you're talking about the 20-minute stand. There are some days that 20 minutes is going to be every stand, and they're not going to happen, even though coyotes are in it. No one's been in there calling. It's untouched. It's kind of like you go fishing, and there's fish in there. Sometimes you get skunk fishing too.
Yeah, that's actually the example I use. I started to use that a while ago. If I was going to teach you a guy from Florida how to hunt, one thing you have to recognize is that calling predators is like fishing. Fish is always in the lake, and they're not always biting. That's the way coyotes are. If you call them, unless you triggered them somewhere or other, that means they're on their feet. When they bed down, they ain't gonna jump up out of that bed and run over to your call. They just not. And so you gotta keep on calling until you know they're on their feet. Now we know that the first hour or two in the morning they're more than likely on their feet. Last hour or so in the afternoon they're more than likely on their feet. Not necessarily, I've one of the best days of calling I've ever had was in the Panhandle of Texas, and I think we called 14 coyotes that day. And but the wind was supposed to blow the third day. But when we got through that night, we found out the wind was going to blow the second day. And that's probably why we kill so many coyotes, because they know what's coming, So okay, what are we going to do? We up there on a 3-day hunt, and this is our first day. I said, well, let's just get up in the morning and see what the wind's doing. It ain't supposed to start blowing until after daylight. We got up the next morning, it's calm, it's beautiful, everything. Let's go coyote hunting. So the guy said, okay, we're going to go back over here in some real rough country. You can deal with it a little better when the wind's blowing, And he said, there's a lot of bobcats in there, Well, the wind didn't blow to about 10, and we made every setup we could tell. We ain't called nothing. So what does that tell me? It tells me that them coyotes hunted hard the day before because they knew the storm was coming. They hunted up until sometime in the night. They got them a bed and they waited out the storm.
Barometric pressure. The pressure. I mean, that it's a lot of guys would say, what's your favorite day to duck hunt on? It's, guys are like, well, when it's snowing and it's storming, like, oh, I want to hunt before that storm on a bluebird sky when it's windy, when that storm's blowing in, right? Because their pressure's dropping. They know they got to get some nutrition and some carbohydrates in them to stay warm and to fight that storm that's coming. And so when predator hunting, I assume this too is that a coyote comes in 5 minutes, charging the decoy, 12 gauge, boom, it's a loud noise. You're done, right? You're up and you're high fiving. Is that stand over after that coyote comes in and he's laying dead at the decoy?
It is if you up and high fiving. But if you're not doing that, which you shouldn't. Now, as Clay can tell you, the shot doesn't seem to bother him unless the second coyote it was running with the first coyote, and then it is over. But if there's one that's just not running with that coyote, he don't seem to have any appreciation of what that shot does. On that same day in the Texas Panhandle I was telling you about, we set up that morning on a hillside. This is all pasture land now, Texas Panhandle type pasture land. And called a coyote, and he come up there, and I shot him. He dropped, and then we just kept on calling. And then from a different direction, here come a coyote over the ridge. But he came down and got on the same trail that the first one was on. And he started up there, and when he got to that first coyote that killed, he just stopped, kind of wheeled around. He was standing there looking at him when I shot him and killed him. When we went out there, both one of them laying on top of the other one. I got that on footage too, by the way.
I would have said I don't believe you.
And so it just don't. You just keep on calling them till you think nothing else is going to come in.
Yeah, you said first thing I do is switch over to Kai and let that play for a couple minutes, and then if nothing reacts to those first couple minutes, the Kai right back to distress sound, and keep playing, because I don't know if it's true, but as a human, you try to outsmart,
Sure.
Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But as a shotgun sound, coyotes don't know what a shotgun is.
No.
They don't know what that sound is. They could hear a car going over a cattle guard. They could hear thunder and lightning. A lot of different sounds in nature are a lot louder and weird than a shotgun. They don't know what a shotgun sound is. So just because that goes off, don't get up and hooting and hollering.
No.
Because if there's one, there's probably more coyotes that are going to react to that sound.
There probably is, that we probably leave a lot of coyotes behind, but there's not a whole lot we can do about that. That you're going to get more responses from downwind than you are going to get from upwind, and we don't ever know what we call from downwind. But if you think about this, the first day that coyote pup came out of the den, his mother told him, don't go if you can't smell. So when you asked a coyote to come downwind to your call, you asked him to go against everything his mama told him to do, when he was growing up, and that's why they circle a lot, 100%. And that's the number one problem that people talk to me about, why they can't get them up close enough to shotgun them, is because the coyote circle downwind on him. But we don't have much trouble with that. We have trouble with it now. It'll happen to us sometime, but I've gone out there and hunted 2 days and called quite a few coyotes and never had one of them on that. Something about that decoy, once they lock onto it, they just come in, But we don't know what happened behind us, so we're not factoring that in. You call some because they can hear you better, and they're in the right position back of you.
Well, that's the advantage of an e-caller, right? Or go. I mean, Clay can talk about this, but being able to move that collar upwind of you to where the visual and the sound is actually upwind of the gun, to where if you're hand calling, that coyote is going to go downwind of you, and he might not necessarily present you with a shot, but something that I would teach somebody is the way that you can use that e-collar and that decoy mixture to your benefit, especially if you do have a crosswind. I would also teach a crosswind instead of putting the wind at my back, all that stuff. And there's so much that goes in. And I love I agree. Predator hunting is not that difficult. You go out, you set your collar down, one rushes in like that bobcat did to Mike and Buck, and you kill them. But a lot of times there is strategy that goes into it. And if you opened up that sight picture out in front of you that you did not contaminate, and you concentrate on that sight picture, and you really put your skills to work there with your decoying, your hide, the way that coyote can approach you, how you're going to stop. Clay's really good at bark stopping or whistle stopping dogs. There's a lot that goes into the harvest rate. Successful coyote hunters can separate themselves from guys that just can go out and kill a couple a year. There's guys that can call and kill 100 a year, 200 a year, because they've honed their skills in, just like any other thing that you do in life.
Sure. I saw a study the other day. Y'all find this interesting. I don't know how old the study was. I just happened to run on it when I was doing some research. They tested the 3 senses of a coyote as to which one was most important to food finding, food gathering, and it's sight, smell, and hearing. What do you think the most important one was?
I would think smell.
Scent.
I would have thought smell too, but it's sight.
Sight.
That's why your decoy works. As soon as I read it, I said, well, that's why the decoy works so good, And I suppose that when they're hunting things at a distance like that, they can sight before they can smell. Mm-hmm. We got a lot of footage of when a coyote's coming in. You think about this. Well, you blow the mouth call, e-call. When you turn it on, he just hears a sound. He don't know, anything other than he identifies that sound with, some type of food for him. So he starts coming towards it. At some point, he sees the decoy. And we got some footage. You can see when the hackles on the back of their neck stood up the second they saw that decoy. They changed complexions at that time.
We have the same footage where, again in this country, you hunt a lot in different areas as well, but a lot of people ask us questions that hunt in real thick areas, and this doesn't apply to them. You can see a coyote in Nevada, 2 miles away, and like you're saying, they come to the sound and footage, as soon as they see that decoy, it's another gear, hackles on it, and jumping over sagebrush, grabbing that feather out of that decoy. We have a ton of that footage, and that's what that decoy makes it so exciting, because you don't get that reaction with no decoy and just hand calling. You don't get that reaction, so it makes it more fulfilling and more exciting for me.
It's much harder to call them right up in your lap with a mouth call than it is with an e-collar, because of what Chad just mentioned a while ago. They can pinpoint the location that sound's coming from. So if they got you pinpointed, right down here, then there's a much bigger chance they're going to spot you coming in, especially if you're doing what we're doing, and that's out filming, I can get out and hide all I want to, but that cameraman's sticking up over there with the camera, he can't hide,
and they can see you a lot further or a lot sooner than you see them.
Absolutely.
So
What is when you talk about predator management, whether it's calling, whether it's government flying and taking care of coyote issues for landowners, livestock owners, wild game populations, trapping, snaring, all of the different applications that there are in predator management, do you personally have an issue with the fur trade?
No, I don't have an issue with it. It's been going on since man was created, so I hate to see some years ago when the antis made people quit wearing furs, for coats, especially women and stuff like that. The human race wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for fur to protect them. Whether it's a native Indian of y'all's country, that's all they had, So, but they're wearing leather shoes and carrying leather purses and leather belts and leather vests and leather everything else. They just don't have any hair on it. But some poor animal died just so they could wear them leather shoes and talk bad about us shooting animals, And the animals that we hunting had a whole lot better life than that cow had. It was raised in a feedlot and slaughtered for meat and fur, for meat and leather, So, there ain't a lot of logic to their thing. It's back to the same thing. They dealing with animals emotionally as one animal at a time. Every animal is a precious life, and you just can't manage herds of animals, flocks of animals, like that. It's not sound, just not sound thought process.
So it's one thing to say, I'm going to go and buy a fur coat if you live in Manhattan and there's a lot of fur that's sold, and people, I see it all the time to where it's okay to do certain things. It's okay to eat chicken because they were slaughtered this way. It's okay to do this, but it's not okay if you're a hunter and that you're actually going out, and it's almost like it's a political agenda in a lot of ways that the antis want to just cause strife because they do have a lot of money behind them. PETA, for example, has a lot of money for attorneys. They have a lot of attorneys that are part of the organization. But and I'm just going to say it in a simple way, is that if you educate yourself on what hunting does and what predator management does and what conservation does and what duck stamps and initiatives and Ducks Unlimited and Delta and Mule Deer Foundation, RMEF, Safari Club, Dallas Safari Club, all of these different organizations are for the preservation, the protection, the security, the success of animals, right, Mr. Terry? There, hunters do, like you said before, we do harvest a few animals a year. Your food plots or your moist soil units, you do get to see ducks come in, and a few of them get killed every year. But the millions that you're feeding up and down that flyway, we've said it here before on the podcast, that's what the big picture needs to be, because those ducks are thriving off of your efforts, off of your dollar, off of your sweat equity. And that's what I want to get across to the antis is, hey, we're all in it for the same. You guys say you love animals. You need to sit down and educate yourself on our true love and passion for animals as well.
Certainly the hunting community, especially more in the past than today, has had abusers. And I'm not talking about the market hunters. I'm talking about the guys that just go out there and bang up and shoot everything and damage property and all that stuff, give us all a bad name. But, past that, I don't know anybody that loves animals any more than the hunters do. These antis, they can say they love animals. They rarely around wild animals. How do they know whether they like them or not? They're not out interacting with them in any way. The population of the planet has come to the point to where we've had to compress life. We've compressed all these people into these big cities. So we have to compress the transportation. To accommodate them, and we've compressed the food supply until the food's all being raised in artificial things, being fed, hormones and vitamins and all kinds of other things, But it really all goes back to, for a huge percentage of the time that man has been on Earth, however long that is, people did for a living what we're just doing mostly for sports. We can say that we like to eat them, we like to meat, and we do, and we make sure that anything we kill, if it's edible, if we can't use it, if we're somewhere just like y'all are, if we're somewhere else and we're just not in a position to be able to handle it, we make sure it goes to someone who can enjoy it, and so their perspective is just not in accordance with reality, if you ask me.
Yeah, I think they're all about the agenda and their cause. They're not about the animal. It's just about being in the limelight or whatever they want to call it, just to cause that problem to get money from people and further their agenda. But we're the actual guys putting money towards the conservation, feeding the animals. And you see it, you go back to Africa, it's kind of easy to see that in Africa where if you put American dollars in that, there's value to that animal and the population thrives on that. Yeah. Now you take that money away because we killed that lion. Now there's hundreds of lions dying because there's too many and they have to cull them, like you're saying, and it's doing the exact opposite of what those people actually are trying to accomplish.
You know how many elephants have been illegally poached in Africa in it's about a year or two old statistic now. But when they stopped all that elephant hunting over there, in the first 3 years after that, they estimate like 30-something thousand elephant a year for 3 years. So you're talking about 100,000 elephants got killed, mostly not for the meat, just for the ivory. It generated no money. Mm-hmm. And hunters, I don't know what the statistic would be, but the hunters, if you'd let them legally sport hunt them animals, them elephants at that time, they wouldn't have killed a small fraction of that amount and generated a huge amount of income. I killed an elephant some years ago in Zimbabwe on tribal land next to Wangi National Park, And the trophy, not the cost of the hunt or anything like that. The trophy fee that we paid to the natives that owned that tribal land was $12,000 US. That's a huge sum of money. Plus, they got all the meat. It's a win, 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 win.
Yeah, there's really nothing that you can do to persuade me or say to persuade me that those laws could ever or should be passed. You know what I mean? Like, to say that you can't go over there and legally take an elephant when it benefits the societies, the tribes, the locale of that, the local people of that area, it doesn't make any sense at all. And we started this podcast. The reason that I wanted to talk to you is because you have so much experience in the outdoors, in life, and we've been friends for going on, almost 10 years now. And what I've learned from you, just sitting down today, I think that people will literally, like Tom said before, they love this type. It's been 3 hours since we started talking, and
I would check into that, Rick.
And I want to do it again because you've touched on so many things that you could, when you start talking about predator management, when you start talking about how to use a Mojo, when you start talking about conservation and land management and food plots, and I want to get into baiting with you. You hunt deer in the state of Kansas. I want to talk to you. What's the difference between that and a food plot in Iowa? Why can't you bait what's the difference in all of that? I want to get your opinion. And I want to do it again. I want to sit down and do it again because the Mojo brand offers so much to the hunting public, the hunting society, the hunting community. And I think that, people are going to love what they hear here. I think the next one we do is going to be in Louisiana. And I wanted to I'm not done yet. And here's why I'm not done yet, because you've done a really good job of educating me on the vernacular or the jargon or the speaking environment of Louisiana and the Cajun country
over yonder.
Yeah. So today you said Nevada. And
did he say Nevada?
He said Nevada, and I wanted to make sure that we correct you. It's Nevada.
Oh, really?
Okay, Nevada. Tom, is that Nevada?
Nevada.
Like, duh. So
I remember that pigeon hunt in Idaho where you got schooled on that.
Well, where I'm going with this is that I've been afforded the opportunity to come to the Denmon Engineering Terry Denmon annual crawfish boil. It happens every year. It just happened about a month ago, not even 3 weeks ago.
About the 20-something of April every year. Yeah.
About 20-something of April. Pinch the tail and suck the head means what? Pinch the tail and suck the head.
It can mean anything you want it to be. But in the case of crawfish, traditionally, most people, if they're not in Louisiana, they just eat the tail meat. And the way you get the tail meat off is you pinch the tail right where it joins the body, and you give it a little twist, and then you've got the tail meat in the tail, and then you can pinch the back end of the tail, and the meat will pretty much squirt out if you know what you're doing. You do, but then, there's a lot of good juicy stuff up in the middle of it, so they take that part that they pinched the tail off of, and they suck on the hole that they just made in the body, and they suck the other parts out.
What is it, fat?
Mostly fat.
The flavoring, that's the flavor. Yeah. Do you do it on every one, or just like one for every 10?
The bigger ones is, of course, if you come to our crawfish bowl, they're all big, So.
And how many pounds was it they were? The guy that does your crawfish boil did a certain amount at yours, and then he was also doing the county fair, the local fair there at the time. And I think if I have it right, it was like 6,500 pounds at yours, and another 25 or 30,000 pounds at that fair, for a total of almost 50,000 pounds of crawfish in a 2-day period. Yeah,
the year you were there, I think we cooked 6,500 at ours, and then they had a crawfish. He started a crawfish festival over across the river where Phil Robertson lived, and he cooked 50,000 pounds that weekend. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
50,000.
So when someone says they cooked 100 pounds of crawfish for you're just like, yeah.
They ain't in it,
Is Tabasco the best hot sauce in the world? And why I ask this is because a lot of people have this ideology in their mind, Mr. Terry, that if it's smaller or it's custom made in somebody's garage, it must be better. If it's not out on the mass market, it must be better. Avery Island, the Little Red Stick, the Baton Rouge, the story of Tabasco is pretty awesome. Pepper sauce, is it the best hot sauce out there? You're from Louisiana. Is it your go-to?
Well, I love Tabasco for certain things, and so it's a food, so it's going to be everybody's got a personal opinion about it. But I'll say this: it's the most widely distributed pepper sauce in the face of the globe. So does that make it the best? Seems like it would.
Isn't that, but most people be like, oh no, this hot sauce is better because my uncle's friend's cousin made it in the basement down yonder. I almost said down yonder, but you know what I mean? It's like people have that, like it can't be the best if it's the biggest. Well, there's a reason they got that big.
Yeah.
Right? Is it the quality?
It has a very distinctive flavor, Tabasco does, and it's widely sold all over the globe, and it's pretty much a staple in a lot of, in a lot of things, Of course, whatever your grandma made was probably the best there ever was,
So when we talk about the language down there, and I love being around you in the field and asking you simple little questions, but I've come up with a few more, and I want to go back to our staples of what does yonder mean?
Well, over yonder means someplace you're not. It's somewhere else. You're over yonder. You're not here. You're over yonder.
Please use it in a sentence.
Let's go over yonder.
So you just point your way like yonder.
Where did that pigeon fall? He fell over yonder.
Yonder can be anywhere other than where you're at.
Yeah, okay. Somewhere you're not. It's not really very defining.
And I've heard you say this a couple times today. When you say y'all, you're talking about the people that are right in front of you, or you're talking about everybody in the room, or what does y'all mean?
Hold on. You need to listen to this,
Okay.
Because you guys, that's a saying I picked up from you. You guys, if y'all talking about 1 or 100, it's you. So if I say you, I don't know if I'm talking to 1 or 100. Well, if down south where we are, if it's you, it's you. But if there's more than you, it's y'all. Makes perfect sense, don't it? Huh?
I don't know, because like y'all come here, like you got 10 people standing
That's
over
everybody.
Everybody come here.
Everybody come here.
All right. Everybody come
Makes
here.
perfect sense. Y'all
you.
are so confusing with the way y'all do it.
So out here where we live, if something breaks, we say we're going to go fix it. But down where you live, if you guys are going to a baseball game and the baseball game's not broke, you say we're fixing to go to the ball game.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I really don't know, but I can tell you this. I spent 21 days in Africa one time with this PH friend of mine, and of course they're English derivatives, they speak a lot more correctly than we do. And when the last couple of days I was there, he says, and we fixing to go over yonder and do some of these. Oh my God, y'all done corrupted me.
It is a cool form of the American dialect and language. Tom, do you know what fixing to means?
Sounds like cooking or something.
Oh, it has nothing. Well, it could be. You fixing to cook,
You're fixing to fix some food.
You're about to. We're going to.
Yeah. I remember 1997, maybe. I think 1997, the SHOT Show was in Las Vegas, and I went there to meet Phil Robertson. And I walked in, and we had kind of talked over the phone, and they saw us and called us the Desert Duck Boys because there's no way to kill ducks out here in our flooded sagebrush. Yeah. But I got into the booth that day, and Jay said, and Phil, I think, they said, "What about it?" And what about what? And that's how they say, "What's up? What's going on?" And what about it? And I had never heard it before, and I felt like not knowing. And that's just another one of your sayings that I thought was pretty cool. So I say that now to people out here, and they're like, "Huh? What are you talking about?"
Hey man, what about it? You just walk up to someone, "Hey man, what about it?" It don't mean anything.
Something that does mean something that I want to make sure is that out here we have counties. In Louisiana, you have parishes. Mm-hmm. Is that a county, or is there something that separates a parish from a county?
It's the same exact thing. Our code is French. We have what they call Napoleonic law in Louisiana. And that's what apparently the French called them back then. So it's a political subdivision, very similar to a county. In fact, it's exactly like a county.
When I was down in Baton Rouge with a buddy Lance, and his wife Monica said, we're fixing to pass a good time. And I was like, man, literally, when you hear something like that, Mr. it makes like 0 sense. Like, we're getting ready to drive by a party is the way I took it.
Yeah.
But what they meant by it was we're getting ready to go party. We're getting ready to go have a good time. Pass a good time doesn't mean you're getting ready to drive by a party. Out here, it would mean, oh, we're getting ready to drive by a good time. Like we're passing it, right? But that one always stuck, and I have the notes here. And then when we were at a little Cajun restaurant or a little Louisiana food stop in by your office, and it was called Voodoo or something. Remind me of the name of the place, Mojo's, or what was the name of that little tiny restaurant? Didn't even have a sign outside barely. And we went in and they had their menus printed on the table. And you took me and Morgan for lunch that day after we were filming down at the headquarters.
Mohawk Lounge.
Mohawk Lounge.
They've had that same menu for about 75 years.
The Mohawk. And Morgan or somebody ordered a po' boy.
Yeah.
And the lady said, how you take it? And he said, dressed. Now, we don't use that out here. Like when I go to the sub shop out here, they say, what do you want on it? And you literally have to say pickles, olives, lettuce, da-da-da-da. Out there, you say dressed, it means
Everything.
The regulars.
Yeah, everything, you know.
But what sense does that make? I mean, dress doesn't mean everything. Especially in today's society, it's less and less.
You
In
can dress
language,
different.
if you want to be boring, it ought to make sense. But if you want to be entertaining, it ought to provoke thought.
I don't know.
Tell me how to pronounce les bon temps roulé. Am I close?
You close as I can get it. So that's a Cajun term.
That's kind of like
French, you know.
Now, the last one I'm going to ask you about
You have to accent the pass. So pass roulé. Okay,
say it again.
pass roulé.
Pass roulé.
Yeah, so you got to accent that pass part. You know,
Possibly.
you practice on it, you'll get it.
Pass roulé.
You know, you can go to the internet now and say, "How do you pronounce that?" and they'll pronounce it for you. You know, if you practice enough, you'll get it.
So the culture of Monroe is different than Cajun country?
Oh yeah, yeah. See, a lot of people mistakenly think that the Cajun from Louisiana is like a Hoosier from Indiana, but it's not. It's a class of people. It's a group of people. You know, those people that you ever read the poem Longfellow. That's the story of the Cajuns. They got run out of Acadian. What's the English country up on the East Coast?
New England.
They run out of there and they got on the Mississippi River and they ended up down the marshes of Louisiana. You know, so they were French Canadians is what they were. You know, and so up until the oil field came to the marshes some 30, 40 years ago, when very few of them could speak English. They almost all spoke French. You know, and they teach French in school today. In high school today, it's mandatory in Louisiana, maybe junior high. I don't know, So that's a French Acadiana people, and the Acadiana is how they corrupted that to Cajun. It's Acadiana, Cajun, and then now they call them Cajuns. But they're a different race of people, basically.
Mr. Terry, you've done a lot, and I know that the age is a mystery. I don't even ask the age because nobody knows how old you are. Nobody cares. It's just if your life was based on if your induction to that Hall of Fame was based on your experiences, then you obviously deserve to be a first round ballot, inductee. And I don't know. I don't know if you could live a fuller life, listening to you talk, your life experiences, your travels, the people that you've met, the boards you've served on, the people that you've educated. You have such a grasp on so many different areas of life. You've mentored me in a lot of ways, and I just want to say thank you for that. Thank you for coming out here and being part of this. Thank you for the partnership, the loyalty to our shows, our brands. And I mean, when I hear the name Mojo, I think of the product. You hear it a lot in different areas. Mojo meaning magic, the story you told, it was just awesome. But I mean, anybody that gets a chance to sit down with you and learn the hunting heritage, the laws of the land, and the ethics, the morals, everything that goes into it. You said so much today, and it went by so fast. Maybe not for you, but for me, I could sit here for another 3 hours and learn from you. I just want to say thank you. In a long-winded way, I want to say thank you.
Me too, and my boy.
Well, great. I enjoyed it. It was fun. But if you want to continue this, you mentioned coming to Louisiana. We're just starting to hunt cottonmouth moccasins. My son started this weekend, So for the next 2 or 3 months, we'll shoot cottonmouths. We'll hunt them, shoot cottonmouths day and night, and we will hunt hogs at night. So come on down. We'll do a podcast.
Oh, man. And so you're saying, is it legal to hunt cottonmouths in Louisiana?
It's illegal not to.
Do you need a tag and a license, or you just?
Nobody ever asked me for one. I don't know,
So if I told you right now I had 20 pounds of frozen crawfish, would you want me to boil them right now for you?
That'd be good, yeah. I thought
Really?
they're frozen. Nah, we don't do that.
We don't have them.
All right.
You
well,
know,
we've
Phil Robertson once said, I heard him say this, said, if you're from Louisiana and you see something like a critter that you don't know what it is, your first inclination is to shoot it. That's pretty much true.
not to take a picture of it with this shoot. Mr. Terry, thank you so much. I love you. I love Mojo. I can't wait to get back down to Louisiana. This is Chad Belding for Clay Belding, Mr. Terry Denmon with Mojo Outdoors. This has been another awesome episode, in my opinion, my humble opinion, of This Life Ain't For Everybody. Mr. Terry has lived that life. Tom, go ahead and play us out with a little Leith Lofton. What you gonna do when the money's all gone? Thank you, Mr. Terry.
What you gonna do when the money's all gone?